Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, we have a new podcast miniseries exclusively on Patreon right now.
For $5 and up subscribers at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, you get Talk King of the Hill Season 2, Part 1.
That's right, we're returning to King of the Hill once again, putting out 11 new episodes covering the first half of the show's second season. Again, that is patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Be there or be not right.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where lunch has rules. And I'm one of your hosts, the ultra-recycler vegetarian Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert, and I've always wondered, what if Spider-Man was a ghost instead?
And who do we have on the line?
It's Professor Gascan, and I was into ghosts before they were mainstream.
And today's episode is the Danny Phantom episode, Mystery Meat.
I'm going ghost!
And today's episode was chosen by one of our premium patrons, Professor Gascan, who last brought us Capital Critters, one of the most miserable things that we watched. We had a lot of fun with it. Today, he brings us Danny Phantom, a much better cartoon. And Professor Gascan, why did you choose Danny Phantom for your patron pick?
I was going to pick Ultimate Spider-Man, but then Nina said she was tired of Spider-Man all over the place, so I figured this is a nice kind of quasi-adjacent thing to that. And I remembered having some positive memories of it as a kid.
I try to limit myself to one Spider-Man a year if I can.
And Nina's a Spider fan, so she's had enough.
Yeah, she was like Hank Azaria in that one episode. You know, Spider-Man, everywhere I go, he's in my way.
We could have got away with it if it's like I could say, oh no, it was a patron who picked it. I didn't pick Spider-Man. But Spider-Man's so cool. And you can even get that through this show, which is so Spider-Man-y. Well, I guess, Gascan, did you grow up watching the show on Nickelodeon in the aughts?
I would have been about 14, which, I mean, you could argue maybe was a little too old to be watching it. But I watched the first season, but then kind of fell off the second one. But I remember enjoying it.
14 is Danny's age, which is the announcement of demographic for the show on their part. So I think that's fair. It actually, when I looked at the programming block of like the 2004 like original shows on Nickelodeon, then they were getting much more into the tween to teen demo than the kid demo.
This was the debut of Drake and Josh, and now Drake is a criminal.
Yep, he's in jail.
God.
And he looks like an aged Jimmy Neutron now.
And also there's Ned's Declassified, and of course the Rugrats even all growed up.
Soon iCarly would be around.
As Told by Ginger was airing as well. It was
Zoe 101.
Pretty much all the Snyderverse of Schneiderverse. Sorry, I hate to bring up that name.
Too many criminals in this era.
I know.
Yoicks in a way.
And Danny Phantom was certainly part of that demographic slide because I think Nickelodeon recognized they had the little kids with Nick Jr. and then they age up into SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents. But then those kids grew up. Where do they go? To Dragon Ball Z? No, we can't have that.
I was curious as if they were sort of playing copycat with Disney Channel because Disney Channel in the early aughts had things like Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah.
Very like tween focus, tween problem shows. And I think it just felt like they were kind of borrowing that sort of appeal.
Yeah, they had a lot of live action stuff on Disney, and Cartoon Network was, of course, cartoons, so they were just kind of in that weird in-between space.
I was thinking more that they were in a, competition with Cartoon Network only, but you're totally right. Like Disney Channel, they had gone commercial and weren't just a premium service anymore, and so their live action shows were really starting to overtake them in the cable numbers, so that's how you get a much more stuff of Drake and Josh, the Drake and Joshening of the channel.
The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. All these things I just remember flipping past being in my early 20s saying, what the hell?
Even Stevens.
Yeah.
But Danny Phantom, it is the middle ground of the Nickelodeon super popular younger kid stuff, like for 10-year-olds, and then the action-y stuff that's on other channels, that they find a good middle ground. And definitely it helps that the creators of the show, I think, are very clearly fans of Silver Age comics, like specifically Spider-Man, that are about balancing, a secret identity with your superpowers and going to school, and it ends up being like a metaphor for hormones and growing up and puberty.
And it's also UPA adjacent, which is something I took for granted in this era. I don't think it's as successful as something like Clone High or the Craig McCracken or Tartakovsky shows, but I think it still is an interesting look that I miss.
Yeah. I'd say superhero-wise, it actually has two dads. I'd say it's Spider-Man, but also Batman, the Adam West Batman, which is a fan favorite of the creator of this show.
And the parents are like Fantastic Four people, too?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sort of. Butch Hartman would be very upset at you using a two dads metaphor here.
That's true. That is not a family.
That does not honor Christ.
That's not family. Yes. Look, we said it now. This is also our first true Butch Hartman show we have done on our animation podcast, which for a guy who has produced some of the most successful cartoons of the last 25 years is surprising. But he is kind of a third rail, I suppose, because it's like he did a bunch of shows that I do like, but in the last 5 years especially, he's turned into a thing that people don't like. And he's like, I guess he could have gone more conservative publicly. Like he's like a never Trump Republican more like than a regular Republican, and certainly a very strong Christian. But yeah, it just makes me go yuck when I see like, oh, Butch Hartman said something, yuck.
I wanted to ask Gascan if he was a fan of his previous show, Fairly Odd Parents, because I was, I think like 18 or 19 when it premiered as its own show, but I did watch the first couple seasons on and off. I was like, this is not as good as SpongeBob, but it's still very snappy. It reminds me of like Dexter's Lab style humor, and I thought it was a fairly good show.
Yeah, pretty much what I felt on it too. Just the first couple seasons, I eventually fell off that as well.
I thought Fairly Odd Parents was a really funny show in the first few dozen episodes. I watched it pretty regularly up until Danny Phantom premiered, actually, when I think that coincides with like the third season of Fairly Odd Parents. And so, yes, when I do have a pretty good history for this, but I'm just going to tell listeners, assume in the future we will do a Fairly Odd Parents episode sometime.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm giving you 50% of what that would have been for the history of Butch Hartman, because Danny Phantom does have two other key creators on the show, though they're credited as developers, not creators. I think they should be called creators. But yeah, Butch Hartman is the creator of the show, and so let's learn a little bit about him. So, born Elmer Earl Hartman in 1965 in Michigan, he had a deep, abiding love of cartoons, superhero comics, and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And
if names can have opposites, Elmer is the opposite of Butch.
I know, is a conventionally handsome man. Like, I think when you see the square head dad on this show, I'm like, that's kind of what Butch Hartman looks like. If you, especially in the world of like a cartoonist, if you were to meet him, you might think, you're too handsome to be a cartoonist. You shouldn't be doing this. There's a reason.
He's decent looking.
He's like Seth MacFarlane after he got all that plastic surgery done.
Him and Seth MacFarlane are kind of the same guy. Yeah, except one votes red, one votes blue. But it's not surprising that when he moved to Los Angeles and attended CalArts, he also had like a second life as a actor. Like he appeared on game shows, like he was on The Dating Game, and I believe he said he won $3,000 on Match Game at one point in the early 80s. And on top of that, like he had a recurring, like if you look at his IMDb, he's on a few dozen episodes of a couple soap operas in the 80s as well.
He looks like a soap opera hunk.
He does.
Or he could have been one.
He looks like he should be holding a stethoscope or something. And so yeah, he's Butch Hartman in his early 20s. He grew up in Middle America in Michigan, moved to Los Angeles to go to CalArts, where he went with a lot of skilled peers who would go on to be the big names of the 90s. You all know them. But before he did that, his earliest gigs in animation were at Ruby Spears, working on trash like the Punky Brewster cartoon, and Dink the Dinosaur, not Denver the Last Dinosaur, the other last dinosaur kind of show.
He was a little dinosaur, not
That's
the
right.
last dinosaur.
And Joel college roomie, Dink.
So by the 90s, he'd move over to Hanna-Barbera, which in interviews was like, that was my dream to work at Hanna-Barbera. I was happy to leave Ruby Spears and all that junk. And so when he went to Hanna-Barbera, he was at the tail end of productions pre-Ted Turner buying the company. His first credits on IMDb are Yogi the Easter Bear and Droopy Master Detective, which I believe is what the second season of Droopy cartoons were from the Tom and Jerry kids.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So Hartman, though, was on to better stuff after that, because Hartman, like a handful of guys, and I do mean mostly guys, Fred Seibert, the new head of Hanna-Barbera, looked to Butch Hartman as one of the next generation of animators in a post-Ren and Stimpy world of cable original animation. And he worked on Two Stupid Dogs, like so many other guys, and he was early in the What a Cartoon, no relation, pilot program. And I looked these up, and they're really easy to find on Vimeo because Fred Seibert himself just put them on Vimeo, I think, because otherwise they are lost to time. But he worked with a future prolific cartoon writer, Mike Ryan, on creating 3 What a Cartoon shows that did not make it to series. One is called Fish and Chips, which is basically Ren and Stimpy meets Chips, the 70s cop show, except the Ren is a Scottish cat instead of a Hispanic. Or what is the accent that Ren has?
I think it's like
Slavic?
Peter Lorre.
Yeah. Instead of a Peter Lorre dog, it is a Scottish cat. So that's Fish and Chips. Then they had Hillbilly Blue, which is basically Ren and Stimpy, but in New Orleans with a crawdad and a rat. So, and then the third one was called Gramps, which is about a gross old man, which was the only one I remembered because Rob Paulson, who's in Danny Phantom, voices this gross old guy who's just like, it's about a mean old man who hangs out with his grandchildren, and he just goes like, what are you talking about? So it's all on Vimeo if you want to watch it. So Hartman, he'd work on those pilots, but none of them got bought. But he was one of the go-to top dudes on the shows that did go to series, specifically Dexter's Lab and Johnny Bravo. On Dexter, he learned a lot about drawing funny little characters and high concepts. And also, he worked a lot on sitcom meets Avengers shorts, The Justice Friends, which absolutely plays to his strengths of superhero comedic stuff, which would go on not just with Danny Phantom, but also all the Crimson Chin stuff. Again, Fairly Odd Parents.
The Crimson Chin looks a lot like the Major Glory character from Justice Friends.
He does. I was debating picking the Johnny Bravo episode that's a parody of a Schoolhouse Rock. That may be a future one, actually.
I actually am glad you mentioned that because that is one of his best episodes of Johnny Bravo. He worked a ton under Van Partible on Johnny Bravo, that series, which has, if you love Family Guy, Johnny Bravo is proto Family Guy. Like, it's full. That Schoolhouse Rock one, simply a Family Guy episode. Hartman's top ones were that Schoolhouse Rock one, a James Bond parody one, and one with just, he hangs out with Adam West. He solves a mystery with Adam West, and Adam West is virtually the same Adam West he is in Family Guy. Like, it's just, it's the PG version of it, but that's Hartman also being involved in the kind of pop culture references he loves and meta-textual references too. And he found quite a co-creator or co-writer on those episodes, Fred Seibert's wunderkind that he discovered at RISD and hired straight out of college, Seth MacFarlane. The two are quick friends. I found an interview of Hartman talking about how, like, Hartman owned a condo in LA and he rented it to Seth when he moved to LA, and they hung out all the time. Like, they were fast friends when Seth MacFarlane was new to LA. When Family Guy started, Hartman voices a couple characters, and there's even a doctor named Hartman named after Butch.
Is that the regular doctor on the show with the mustache?
Oh, right, yeah, the mustache guy. Yeah. Hartman taught a ton to Seth MacFarlane as well. Their styles gel so much together. It's not not surprising that they worked together on Bravo, but eventually they split off when McFarlane was tasked by Fox to be their Matt and Trey to create South Park for Fox Television.
I get the feeling they wouldn't have stuck together for very long anyway, just kind of a personal politics.
I also get the sense, looking at a lot of Hartman's career, there's people who work with him for a time and then don't keep working with him. But though oppositely, I will say him and Van Partible in a recent podcast interview that I watched for research on this, they still seem to be buddies. But I also think Van Partible kind of like retired early or whatever. Just that I think that's cool. If he got like, a pretty big paycheck from Johnny Bravo, he's like, what am I making more stuff for? I'm just going to chill out in LA for the rest of my life. But yes, it's Seth MacFarlane, Butch Hartman, both handsome white guys who love science fiction, old sitcoms, comic books, all that stuff. And so Hartman was doing great work on Johnny Bravo, but I think he could see that he wasn't getting to create his own show, which he really did want to do. And then in 1998, Fred Seibert is the executive who really liked him. He moved over to Nickelodeon to do the same thing that he did with What a Cartoon, called Oh Yeah Cartoons, which we covered a bit in our Adventure Time one as well. And so Fred Seibert, of course, he's like, well, if I'm going to do this again, I'm going to offer gigs to some of my top guys. And Butch Hartman is definitely one of them. And that's when Hartman came across the idea that would finally make him famous and create his own series, Fairly Odd Parents. And so that's a whole podcast on its own. But short version is he creates this concept of a little kid who has magical odd godparents who fix everything for him, but there's magical rules all the time.
It's such a good pun. I think the show was written backwards. The pun came first, and the show was developed.
When I first watched Fairly Odd Parents, it was very distracting to me because Cosmo is voiced by a guy who did a lot of anime dubs at the time.
That guy is also in Hobgoblins. He is the MC of Club Scum in Hobgoblins.
Right.
He's also in the classic fifth generation video game True Crime Streets of LA.
Oh, wow, man.
Which we all love and remember, of course.
One of the
fondly.
many GTA ripoffs.
But hey, nobody could doubt its accuracy of the map of Los Angeles.
Yeah, though somehow nobody on the streets, they didn't get that part right.
Hey, as long as you can like turn on Pico to here I'm Sepulveda. There's two streets in Los Angeles. I know. So he makes a pilot in '98. It is a big hit. The Fairly Odd Parents is the biggest hit of the Oh Yeah Cartoons era. They commissioned six more shorts that then kind of just get jammed together into half-hour episodes. It is made to full series, which will debut in 2001. Very quickly, it is the biggest rating boon on Nick, second only to SpongeBob SquarePants, coming into his own in the post 9/11 era. Like, it's SpongeBob and then it's Fairly Odd Parents. They are, the twin pythons of twin titans of Nickelodeon.
The Twin Towers, let's say.
Whoa, hey. But they stayed standing, though, these Twin Towers. But sorry.
Yeah. Fairly Odd Parents is, I wouldn't say it was a distant second to SpongeBob, but it was always like a few steps behind it. But it was the second biggest thing on the whole network.
Well, the difference is SpongeBob really is more of the heir to the Ren and Stimpy style. Like, it has much more dynamic art and crazier things. Like, Fairly Odd Parents it's too metatextual. It can't get wacky enough. Like, it's too it more is about commentating on things and characters just saying, well, that happened, or what, which Danny Phantom does quite a lot. So, as Hartman tells the story, including in his dumb book Mad Hustle that I did pay for to read, his chapter on how I created Danny Phantom.
Is that like a 99-cent ebook or something?
It's $5. Honestly,
Okay.
It's too much. It's all part of Hartman's current branding of him when he's not being a warrior for Christ. He is doing things about like hustle culture, billionaire mindset, all that kind of like success win.
I see that he's also like taking commissions where he just rips off existing art.
He does do that too. Yeah.
My favorite video of that is somebody uploading the sad SpongeBob ukulele music over a montage of this picture.
You know what? I'll talk about his art later with another fact. But yes, so as Hartman tells it in his book and in multiple other things, he says that Nickelodeon was looking for more action-based kids shows. You know, not only was Cartoon Network doing great with Toonami, Kim Possible was a big new hit in 2001 on Disney Channel, plus Pokemon still giant. Like, there was much more of a call for action stuff than just silly kid adventures that Nickelodeon specialized in so well. So Hartman tells a story that with thinking about how Nickelodeon wants this, he goes on a road trip to help his mom move to Las Vegas. So he's like driving her from her home in Michigan to Las Vegas as he's in this very long car ride. He's got a lot of time to think, and he's thinking about, you know, what were the action things he loved as a kid. And top of the list for him was Johnny Quest. And he really liked that name convention of a blanky something, like a guy. So you can see Johnny Quest too. I think originally he wanted to call it Johnny Phantom, and then they're like, nah, yeah, that's too close. Do Danny. So he thinks like, I want a show like Johnny Quest. Also, I love all those old superhero comics, especially Spider-Man, about a kid hiding his secret identity. And on top of that, I love Ghostbusters. And like the Fenton Works is the Ghostbusters home.
Yeah.
They have a containment unit.
Exactly.
I think it's funny that hardcore Christian Butch Hartman keeps accidentally creating these show concepts that are adolescent or teenage character hiding a secret from their parents.
You know, yes. I'm glad you touch on that, Professor Gascan, because I think part of Hartman's current backlash against people telling him, like, hey, this show doesn't seem very Christian or whatever, is that I think some things that he doesn't mean to say come out in shows he does. Like, I think not just that both Danny Phantom and Fairly Odd Parents are about a young boy keeping a secret from his parents.
It's true.
But also, like, people have pointed out that Cosmo gets pregnant. Like, there's Mpreg, there's almost every... I've seen people point out on Twitter that only second to Totally Spies does Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom hit every type of weird fetish of like balloon fetish and latex fetish and thick mom fetish. All of these.
And then tough puppies for all the furries out there.
Yes. So, and I mean, you only need to turn off Safe Search and look by the name of any character in a Butch Hartman cartoon, and you will see things you wish you didn't see.
The show also affirms there is no afterlife.
Yeah.
It's like the main character is kind of half dead. I don't understand the implications of that.
Well, originally there were ghosts, but I think his Christian sensibilities kind of got in the way because he had to change it to, no, actually it's a dimension of ghosts things that imitate people on Earth.
Not a soul that would obviously be taken either to heaven or hell.
That's a real Luigi's Mansion cop-out, because in that game, they're like, oh, these aren't actual ghosts of dead people. They're ghosts of paintings that were created by the Boos. Like,
Lame.
no, I want that baby to be dead that I'm fighting.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredibly lame explanation he gave, and it was like retroactive too, because stuff in the first season contradicts it.
You know, on a certain level, I blame ourselves for this because, like, in the aughts, pedantic feature writers for websites like me wrote articles like, is this a dead baby if you really think about it? And by writing all those articles about if you really think about it, doesn't it mean this? Then the creators of the games have to then explicitly say how it's not that, and it takes away the fun of the implication. But yeah, so he's thinking about this big action show, Hartman is, and fitting it all together. He's workshopping the idea. He pegs it as late 2001 into 2002. Or late 2001, he has a dinner meeting with a couple of Nickelodeon execs who first off tell him that as they're working on the second season of Fairly Odd Parents, they're like, we're giving you the green light right now for a third season of Fairly Odd Parents. We want it right now. And then they said, what else you got? As Hollywood execs are wont to say. And as Hartman explained to the pitch in 2004, he said it to them. It's a show about a kid with ghost powers who fights ghosts and is in high school. It's Johnny Quest meets Buffy meets Ghostbusters. And the executive said, let's make it. It was a very good dinner. And so just like that, just boom, at the table, they buy it. And he was given a couple months to develop it, to make a proper pitch, but he was given pretty much just a full green light there. But then he says that there actually was a bump in the road because if you know when Danny Phantom came out, If in 2001 he got the green light for it, why was it April 2004 when the series finally debuted? Well, it was that Albie Hetch, who was then president of Nickelodeon, who really liked that idea, he leaves for Spike.
Oh.
He leaves for Spike, and a new executive comes in. And Hartman, even in his book, is like, normally executives just wipe the slate clean of projects like this because they didn't greenlight it. And he says that Danny Phantom went through that for like 2 years straight of like almost being canceled, and then they rework it to what the exec wants, and then they're like, well, I don't know. And he reworks it and reworks it. So a lot of rewrites, phone calls, meetings, 2 years of it to finally then get the pilot film for Danny Phantom actually made.
I have to wonder if that exec is responsible for the Spike TV Adult Swim style block.
He 100%
Okay,
is, yes. He's the co-creator of one of the shows in that block.
When things get dark, we have to cover Gary the Rat or something.
Man, I guess.
Yeah, you could do that without me.
Well, I think I might have found the one I'd want to do if we truly want to suffer more than Gary the Rat. But I'll tell him.
We'll at least get to hear Kelsey Grammer, right?
That's true, yeah. But Stripperella actually has good animation. Well, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
better than it should be.
The full title is Stan Lee Stripperella. Remember, he created it.
You're right. I'm taking the credit away from Stan, the man there. But okay. But speaking of developing the show, let's talk about the two other big creative forces on the show, who I think honestly should be called co-creators, but that's not how it worked out. Co-developers of the show, Steve Marmel and Stephen Silver. So let's talk a lot about Steve Marmel here. He actually got his start in the world of stand-up. If you look up Steve Marmel Premium Blend or Steve Marmel Comedy Central, he was doing stand-up that much. Like, you can also find a very funny now in retrospect video from like late 90s of him and Louis C.K. on a like local PBS show talking about how they get censored for saying dirty words in comedy clubs.
Is this like the sport coat and white sneakers era of comedy?
He's a little of that, but dirtier. But he is of that era. Well, he actually was a regular on Politically Incorrect and a bro with Bill Maher at the time. Apparently, he was so big on that show that he did a failed pilot called Mouth Off, which was basically like him and another comedian hosting a politically incorrect show where then other comedians came on to do like basically a rant about the comedy of the day. That only exists on YouTube because one of the comedians who was on the pilot, she uploaded her bits. So you can really only see Steve Marmel introduce this woman doing stand-up on Mouth Off. He's got a lot of opinions that people wanted to silence, man, and he's got a lot of common sense things to say. But so his stand-up career, he's not going to the next level. He's not selling a sitcom. And so he starts dipping his toes into the world of animation. And he works on some Cartoon Network stuff, including Johnny Bravo and Cow and Chicken, which is where he got into contact with Butch Hartman. And Marmel would be an early hire from Hartman. He was, I think, the most prolific writer in original series Fairly Odd Parents. I think he has writer credit on 40-something of the shorts. So Marmel worked quite a lot with Hartman. He was one of Hartman's favorite writers on the show. And so he'd take on an even bigger role when developing Danny Phantom. And Hartman would admit, even in his book, that he's like, I was working on Fairly Odd Parents and developing Danny Phantom at the same time. These were like 6-day-a-week, 16-hour days. He needed help steering the series, and it was very, very hard. In his book, he even sounded like he regretted how much he worked because he also was a father to young daughters that he barely saw in that time. I think he regrets that now. But Marmel helped develop a lot of it. I think having a goth girlfriend was a more Marmel touch than a lot of his stuff usually has a black friend in the style of Tucker in this show. There's the African-American friend that Timmy Turner has on Fairly Odd Parents is really cut from the same cloth, as is black friends in other shows he'd do after Danny Phantom.
The dweeby black friend as opposed to the like cool black friends seemed to have been kind of a trend around this time, I guess a shift, if you will.
Yeah, I was noticing that it wasn't just in Hartman Productions then. It was a pretty standard thing of like, I think maybe the shows got called out too much of like, oh yeah, you always write the hip black friend who's like good at rapping and basketball. And so then they turned the other way of like, well, actually they're mega nerds. That's the black guy on our show.
I think Kim Possible, the black friend on that show, was also a nerd. He was a shut-in too.
Yeah.
He was like the tech guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was voiced by the kid from Hanging with Mr. Cooper. That kid.
Omar Gooding?
I think. Oh, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. But so I didn't find a source where Marmel said, yes, credit me for this. But multiple fan theories in the Danny Phantom community see the darker and edgier stuff of the show and the more culture war tension like you see in this episode. They credit that more to Marmel. And a lot of people feel in the Danny Phantom fan community, the final season, which is a truncated 13 episodes, Marmel had left the series for the third season, and they feel it is lacking without his involvement. But that could also be like how when you're outside of The Simpsons, you hear the story like, oh, when Conan O'Brien left, the show fell apart. It might not be the case, but it is worth noting that Marmel, who was the head writer of seasons 1 and 2, wasn't there for 3, and people like 3 less.
I do want to point out the character Wade Load from Kim Possible, voiced by Taj Mowry. That's who we were thinking of.
Okay, Taj. And he was on Hanging with Mr. Cooper, right?
I believe so.
Okay. I also remember...
His name is Wade Load.
Yes.
I think he's always on a screen too. Like he's never in person. He was an always online kid way before it was a full lifestyle. So Marmel worked on the show in the first 2 seasons. He did like tons of interviews too. Like he was in the promotional material. There's a video of like Danny Phantom coming soon, and we're talking to Butch Hartman and Steve Marmel about the show. So he was getting out there as like as trying to be the face of the show too. Seemingly at some point, him and Hartman had a falling out on some level because they did not work together again after that. But I couldn't find anything. Neither is talking crap about the other on it. But Marmel would leave to create a truly awful show. I would say the worst show on Spike's TV's animation answer to Adult Swim, and a show no one remembers, called This Just In.
I'm glad that you brought this to my attention, Henry. I also secretly resent you for making me aware of this, but I did watch a clip of it, and I can believe this was made, but it's just like, boy, this sucks.
So
I actually did watch all of that Spike TV block, and I do not remember that This Just In at all.
Well, so the Spike TV block did come in late 2003, and then as we were getting to the summer of the 2004 election, then This Just In premiered as part of it too. I think probably I saw it the first time because I would have been watching a WWE Raw on Spike, and then right after comes this show. But yeah, I mean, it is such a product of the summer of 2004 and the lead up to the Bush re-election. Steve Marmel plays the main character and co-created the show. He would describe himself as a raging centrist. But when you watch the character he voiced on this show he created, and the guy's a Republican. The guy he hates all the Democrats, and at best he'll be like, I'm not a crazy anti-abortion guy, but I think it is. And it's just kind of like, yuck.
Well,
yuck.
I mean, a raging centrist from the early aughts is now like an MSNBC liberal in 2021.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, if you look at Steve Marmel's current Twitter account, that he's an MSNBC blue state liberal. I mean, he's on the plus side. He's like, hey, vote no on the recall in California. Get your vaccines. Fuck all these anti-vaxxers. Fuck the 1-6ers, which is like, it's better than him going full MAGA if we're talking about positives. Does that really speak to that the Democratic Party is just like the Republican Party of 2004 now? Is that what exactly does it mean? But yes, This Just In is considered lost media. Like there's 3 episodes that are on YouTube. Like the Lost Media Wiki just says there's multiple episodes just don't exist. Nobody taped them and nobody uploaded them.
It says nobody bother finding these either.
Yes.
Please keep it lost.
No, I mean, Steve Marmel would prefer they keep it lost because he's moved on from that and he makes very apolitical shows now, and would prefer to not talk about a show where he wrote George W. Bush to be secretly a genius. Who, like everybody, I remember the scene where they meet George W. Bush and he's like, no, I went to Yale. I'm not an idiot. And they're like, wow, who would have thought?
The clip I could stomach watching was like the cold open for one of the episodes, and the main character played by him is just doing a Dennis Miller style rant about the newspaper headlines, and it's like the perspective is this guy is funny and right, and you're going to watch him.
He's got a very smug eyebrow up, and he has an African American. In multiple scenes in this episode actually reminded me of watching This Just In, because there's the white guy, main guy. He has an African American friend who supports him, and there's a hot lady who is also, though, a crazy liberal that he like wants to date, but also thinks is a crazy liberal he needs to fix. So kind of familiar in the Danny Phantom world. But yes, Marmel would go in and out of stand-up and animation after This Just In kind of just farted away. He wrote for multiple Jeff Dunham things, including the animated special about Ahmed the Dead Terrorist.
Yikes.
Oh, boy.
You know, Jeff Dunham was so great in the 90s. He had a Woozle named Peanut. He had the old man puppet that I loved. And then he just, 9/11 broke his brain.
And then it's funny, in the post-2016 world, he became the less conservative comedian with puppets. Terry Fator became much more conservative than him.
Is that the guy who you see giant ads for in Las Vegas?
You only know
when you
about
land?
him if you're in Las Vegas. Yeah, that Jeff Dunham did light jokes about Trump with his Trump puppet, and Terry Fator made a Trump puppet who is the strongest and smartest and greatest. So
Yeah, he makes out with him on stage.
But so yes, after working on those things, Marmel then went into the much safer world of Disney Channel, working on a bunch of live action crap like So Random and Sunny with a Chance, and now has created this mecha show. That's his most recent one. He's still pretty active. But again, if he has seen the light and is not such a conservative dude, his Twitter seems pretty, California Democrat, so fine. I don't want to guilt him too much about siding with George W. Bush in the middle of the Iraq War, which, seriously, fuck that.
Above a certain age group, he just kind of had to write some people off.
Yes, yeah.
Well, now George W. Bush is so sad that we all learned the wrong lesson from 9/11.
Yeah. We're recording this September 13th. So that's why
it's fresh in our minds.
Okay, let's talk about Happier Guy. Steven Silver,
Yay.
the other developer of the show. Steven Silver, a Londoner who got his big start in art working on No Fear fashion in the 90s before moving to Los Angeles to work in animation. 1997, he'd get his big break at Warner Television working on the very late Ruger era Hysteria educational edutainment show as a character designer, which, if you look at those, they do kind of have the hallmarks of Silver's very sharp character designs, but it's halfway in between those and the Animaniacs art style.
I think one thing that makes Silver's designs age not so well is that a few years later, every webcomic would try to rip him off. All of your Two Video Game Friends on a Couch comics were the thick lines and poorly drawn characters. There's 3 years of Penny Arcade that looks like Steve Silver had a head injury and then drew it.
Absolutely.
I wish Penny Arcade would go back to that art style, frankly.
Yeah, it's oh my god, look at a modern Penny Arcade. It looks like when you in a textbook you see, here's what happened when you had a schizophrenic draw a picture. And yes.
This is Van Gogh's Angry Jerk period.
But anyway, so Steven Silver, he worked on Hysteria. Show wasn't a hit, but the character designs were memorable. And then post that, he moved over to Disney. Chris Bailey was a rising star in Disney. We should do a whole podcast about him. But as a rising star, he got put on a very ill-fated primetime cartoon that people thought would be a big hit in 1999. Clerks, the animated series. And so if you look at Chris Bailey's art style, him and Silver kind of meet in the middle, they really melded together. And so if you look at Clerks, the Steven Silver style really came into focus there. If you look at the fingers on a Clerks character, they're Danny Phantom fingers.
Definitely. And Chris Bailey, director of Runaway Brain, the Mickey short that is lost.
That's a great one.
It's easy to find, but Disney doesn't really like it that much. But they don't like a lot of their shorts they make.
Yeah, I know, which is funny because all the shit that happens in Runaway Brain, not even half as crazy as the things that happen the Paul Rudish Mickey shorts.
That's 100% true, yeah.
Yeah, they tear apart Mickey, Mickey's arms and legs fall off multiple times in that, but oh no, the one time Mickey turned into a werewolf, that's too scary for kids. But yeah, so the heavy lines, sharp cheekbones, flat character designs, chins that just become a neck, all that stuff, the tubiness of that style, it really works well with honestly a television budget and easy to do action. Though you can also see that Silver's style kind of melds with the Hartman style when he comes on Danny Phantom, because there's still very hippie ladies in it, which is much more the Hartman style, I'd say.
Yeah, looking at the concept art, I guess the original designs he came up with for Danny Phantom during production, they don't look that different, but they do kind of have a little more meat on them. They're kind of, the shoulders are a little wider, their arms and legs are bigger.
So listeners should just listen to our whole Clerks animated series podcast we did for What a Cartoon, but it washes out very quickly. 2 episodes there and it's done. Chris Bailey on the commentary calls his shot and says, guys, look forward to our next show. I'm working on it right now. And that would be the 2002 premiering Kim Possible, which Silver was a huge part of, lead character designer on the show with Chris Bailey. And that made him a big, big hit in U.S. animation, a very in-demand guy. And Kim Possible, like we said, was part of this rising tide of action-based American shows on cable.
I will say that show much better animated as an action series than this was. I do like this show, but
Yeah, actually, the animation in this show did surprise me at times, but there's a lot of times where these designs don't really work well for an action show, and maybe the direction is not, definitely not as good as Kim Possible.
I think Bailey was more into fluidity. Like, these things are still a little stiff, which, I mean, when I think of how a Butch Hartman show does comedy, and this is a compliment, but characters are usually locked into place. Like, they stand still in place and they say a funny line or whatever. So having a character that like punches and kicks things, it's harder to work with that kind of style. But so as Silver tells it, Hartman had a lot in mind for what he wanted for Danny Phantom and the rest of the cast, and it was Silver who really flushed it out. He took a lot of the Kim Possible realistic proportions, but meshed it with the Hartman character design, including like the Hartman pupils on things, moms in skin-tight clothes, big stupid square head dads, all the Fairly Odd Parents stuff. And also I'll say, if you look up a recent Steven Silver video on like how to draw Danny Phantom, and then look up one for Butch Hartman, one of them's a lot more on model than the other one, and it feels like I think that's how much you can credit Steven Silver's work to what makes Danny Phantom Danny Phantom. So now after Danny Phantom, he's like a very in-demand freelance designer. Looking at his work, it doesn't seem like he stays on salary in one place. He just gets like paid big to freelance on character design. His fingerprints are all over Madagascar, the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I can see that,
films, and pretty much all the modern Scooby stuff, or a predominant amount, a large amount of it.
You can definitely see it in the way he does hands, just the way the fingers just kind of go along one line.
Yeah.
They're like Grand Theft Auto hands.
You're right.
Yeah, like they have big oven mitt hands.
Yeah.
That's the background on the two Steves on the show. After selling the show and starting to development, Hartman also launched his own production company, Billionfold Inc., which would produce all his shows up until 2017. And he would start casting the show. Main character on the show, Danny Phantom, is David Kaufman. We already talked about him a lot, as he was Jimmy Olsen in the Bruce Timm Superman show, and Dexter Douglas, Nerd Computer Ace on Freakazoid.
He was blessed with that squeaky voice. He's like 60 now, and I think he was maybe 45 doing the voice of Danny Phantom. He was also the voice of Marty McFly on the Back to the Future cartoon.
Right.
So for the rest of his life, however long that will be, he will be a squeaky voice teen on everything.
It's perfect. Yeah. And he always comes off as a real fan and stuff. Like, he's in the extras on multiple of the Justice League and Batman DVDs interviewing the guys, because he's like, let's go to Golden Apple Comics in LA and let's just talk about making the Superman show. Like, he's a real fan.
Something that surprised me, sorry to interrupt you, Andy, but something that surprised me about the show is Disney Channel had a real like factory system going on, in which like you are groomed from birth to be a live action and cartoon star. So like the voice of Kim Possible is a Disney Channel lady. These are just voice actors. There's no like Nickelodeon factory.
Yeah, it's even with like that Drake and Josh show, like they let Drake become a voice in the Disney factory, not there. It's weird that they don't. I guess Nick's not as into the talent agency bit of it. I guess of like this cross pollination of characters. Like Keenan and Kel, they invested a lot in them, but they didn't do like voices in the cartoon thing. Maybe it was just like the live action and cartoon departments were very separate and didn't like working together. Could be that. The voice of Tucker was child actor Ricky Deshawn Collins. Most famous, he was Vince on Recess. His sister Jazz on the show is voiced by Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who is the current voice of Tails, or I should say Miles Tails Prower.
Thank you.
Really?
She voiced Tails in the Tails cameo at the end of the Sonic movie. That's her.
That's her. So she's been Tails and other things too.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
wow,
she was
okay.
Tails in Sonic Boom, most of the recent games. And it hasn't been announced yet. I would bet Tails will be a famous person. If Knuckles is going to be Idris Elba, Tails has to be somebody famous and can't just be the video game voice, you know? I wouldn't expect that. And the rest of the cast is filled out with voice-over superstars. Gray Griffin is Sam. Kath Soucie is the mother Maddie. Rob Paulson as the father Jack, alongside other folks like Cree Summer, Tara Strong, Kevin Michael Richardson, and D. Bradley Baker in major roles, which is a lot of crossover with Fairly Odd Parents. Like, I think Hartman he liked the cast he worked on with Fairly Odd Parents and brought a lot of them over to Danny Phantom.
One guy that's really great in the show is Ron Perlman, doing a voice that I did not expect to come out of Ron Perlman's mouth.
He's great.
When I heard the character again, like 15 years after I half watched the show, I'm like, who is doing this voice? It's amazing, and it's Ron Perlman. Yeah,
yeah, he is so good as Lancer. He is doing like a much like smoother voice than he does, but the character still is drawn that like. I bet if he just shaved his head, he could play Lancer in a live action rendition of Danny Phantom. I love Ron Perlman. He's great in everything. Like, I wish his Hellboy films had been a big hit, but
he was funny on Twitter.
Yes, yeah. He's, I mean, somebody on Twitter has to say like, eat shit and die, Ted Cruz. Like, somebody needs to say it.
Only celebrities can give death threats on Twitter.
Yeah.
Look, somebody has to say what we're all thinking.
And in fact, what I just said was in parody, and I was playing a character when I said that. So, but yes, the show also had a ton of celebrity guest stars, which Hartman chalked up to his love of the Batman 66 series when he was growing up, because every episode had a villain who was played by a famous person. And so, as he said back in early interviews for the show promoting it, Hartman said, all celebrities play a ghost. Like the Batman show back in the 60s where every celebrity played a villain. I want everyone in Hollywood to play a ghost eventually. Right now, we have Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond. We also have Matthew St. Patrick from 6 Feet Under playing a hunter ghost named Skulker. We got Peter McNichol from Ally McBeal playing a nerd ghost from the 50s. Perry Gilpin from Frasier is a harem girl ghost. Martin Mull is Danny's arch enemy Vlad Plasmius. And Freddie Rodriguez from 6 Feet Under plays the mayor of Danny's town. So, and that's on top of Ron Perlman just being a regular voice on the show.
I think you were saying, Henry, there was quite a few Republicans, like notable celebrity Republicans on the show.
Yeah.
And hey, Rob Paulson is.
It's true. Yeah, you know, I've seen Rob Paulson. He'll make fun of Trump and stuff too. But yes, yeah. I mean, Patricia Heaton was big in 2004. Big Bush supporter. Like, she was one of the most famous Republicans in Hollywood. A couple of years after this episode aired, she had quite a lot of opinions about the Terry Schiavo case.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Though I've looked into Patricia Heaton lately, and guess what? She's a never Trumper. She's one of those people like, I'm an independent now. Like, I'm like, fuck off. Anyway, you've got Butch Hartman, you got Steve Marmel, you got Patricia Heaton, another conservative actor, and then on top of that, Hollywood Republican, though quiet about it kind of guy, Jay Leno was in. He was a Crimson Chin. Like, so. Yeah, I think Butch Hartman was doing a quiet red Hollywood as the reddest show in Hollywood on his cartoons.
I guess to be fair to them, they put in good performances at least.
They did. I compliment James Woods as one of the best actors in The Simpsons and Hercules, and he's one of the worst guys alive right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the cast. Overseas animation was handled by Rough Draft in Korea, and I think they do a pretty good job. It's Rough Draft has done better stuff, but even in this episode, there's multiple things that I'm like, boy, if this wasn't Rough Draft, this would look way rougher for the things they were. No pun intended.
Yeah, like when all the meat comes together to form the meat monster, it's very well done.
Oh yeah, and slow-mo shots of action, like they pull it off well. Again, with character designs that don't super duper work awesome in action, you know?
No, they don't. But I suppose we'll be able to get that when we get to those scenes specifically.
But the show also is programmed different from Fairly Odd Parents 2 in that it was the half-hour format, like Kim Possible as well, and most of the other action shows. And from watching a few episodes, I kind of feel like, boy, this feels a little padded. Like this feels like you stretched it to get it to the 24-minute mark.
I mean, I was surprised that I wasn't sure how how I would feel about the show, but when I was going into it, I'm like, oh, you know what? I was too old for this, but if I was a kid, I would have liked it. But about halfway through, I was like, this is still one story. This really needs to be like 11-minute cartoons.
The pacing is really weird.
But I do like his growing rogues gallery, and also the show does have like a real progression of a story, like not like, on the level of say Steven Universe or whatever, but for example, I think it is the 6th or 7th episode, his sister learns his secret identity, and so there's a storyline continues from there. Characters grow and change over the show, like villains. He's Green Goblin, who's voiced by Martin Mull, which that's such a funny casting to be like, who plays the Green Goblin of the show? Martin Mull, comedian Martin Mull, but he's great as Vlad. Yeah, it grows over time. There's major like specials, like hour-long special, like Danny's never faced a challenge this big kind of thing. And so they're working on the original season while they're doing the last of the regular episodes of the first run of Fairly Odd Parents, while Fairly Odd Parents transitions into like multiple specials a year for bigger ratings grabs. They do 20 episodes of Danny Phantom. And after the first season, which premiered in like the prime time slot of after the Kids' Choice Awards of 2004, that's when Nick really believes.
I wonder who got slime then. I'm gonna look it up.
2004, boy, I would Blink 182. I would bet they showed up. Tony Hawk's got to be there.
Jack Black, I'm guessing.
Of course, yes, absolutely. Jack Black.
Mike Myers and Cameron Diaz hosted it. So.
Because Shrek 2 had just come out. That's right, man. It premiered, does really great in the ratings. Second season comes, they change up some things. One of them, which is they give Danny an actual like superhero logo. That DP combo logo on his chest was added in season 2. He just has a full black
DP
outfit.
Does not sit right with me.
Oh, no.
Guys.
I know. But and the P's inside of the D in the way the logo's done. Hey, anyway, but so Hartman, he's still working on it, but Marmel leaves in season 3, and it seems like Nickelodeon felt by the third season, it's run its course. We got 52 episodes, wrap it up. And so it has a definitive final episode that really does like blow up the status quo, and it's Danny's biggest adventure ever. To a lot of hardcore super fans on the internet in 2006, they were really pissed off about that. They're like, no, this show could go on forever. Why are you ending it? He's starring in all these video games too.
Ooh, okay.
Like there were 2 dedicated Danny Phantom video games. Plus he appeared in all of the Nickelodeon like team up things. He was a big hit, but after 06, Nickelodeon just seemed to be like, it's run its course. We're moving on to new shows. The kids who watch this have grown up and they're 17 now. They're not going to keep watching Danny Phantom. Put it on, fill the slot with something else. So that was the end of Danny Phantom, mostly. After that, Hartman would keep making more Fairly Odd Parents. Then he'd sell like 3 other shows. Other than Klasky Csupo, nobody has sold more shows to Nickelodeon than Butch Hartman has.
Yeah, he was there, Seth MacFarlane. You're right.
He really was. Probably making real good money. And so, yeah, he created a show in 2017 that was not that big of a hit, and then his contract ended with them, and he's like, I'm out of here. And he started doing a lot of stuff, like I said, that was either about hustle mindset or him and his wife doing videos about living an honest life through Christ and just, Christian living stuff. I'm not saying he was like, reading Bible passages on TV, but it was him and his wife talking about how how to live a life with Christ and all that. Also, he's had several controversial things where we talked about, he got tasked by somebody to draw like an Attack on Titan mashup with one of his characters, and he clearly stole from somebody else's art.
I think there was also Ranma art he did for somebody that was also just like plagiarized.
He definitely has done things that like go viral, that he did in 2016 he did this viral post of, I drew the characters 10 years older from Danny Phantom. Here's what they look like now. And if anybody wanted to do an interview with him about hey, could you tell us Danny Phantom stories? He'd be like, I'd love to. And let me mention what I'm doing now.
Butch Hartman is a land of contrasts.
He's a very online guy, but also really hates comments that call him like a hack or make fun of Jesus or any of that stuff. But he also is super duper online of There's this funny video series called So Basically on YouTube that like does little cartoons about making fun of or parodying hit series. And when they did the Danny Phantom one, Butch Hartman designed characters for it and voiced one of them in it. Like, so, and also in 2017, they did a reunion short where Danny and all the other Hartman characters met each other. So that was the last time Danny Phantom got animated. 2018 was when he left Nickelodeon, and he also started a crowd-funded thing for his next network, which then people felt tricked into because he was like, no, it's just for family entertainment. And then people were like, wait, this sounds religious. And he's like, not explicitly so. I mean, sure, we're based out of a church, but, you know, that doesn't mean it's religious. So it's push and pull with Hartman. And the other stuff that's happening with Danny Phantom right now is everybody's talking about that upcoming Nickelodeon Smash clone that's coming out.
Right.
Danny Phantom's playable in that. So at the very least, you can finally have Danny Phantom beat up Nigel Hawthorne as you always dreamed.
It's insane to me that they don't have any voice acting in that game. Like, even that crappy Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion game did
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
It's that came out pretty recently. It is cheaping out, I have to admit. My hope is that this will end up being a real big hit, and then when they make the melee of this series, that's when Nickelodeon says, fine, we'll spend $2 million on having all the voice. $1 million. I bet no more than $1 million tops to get all the voices.
Tom Kenny is top dollar.
Yeah, it's true. And Fagerback, you don't want to know what he expects in his writer. Yeah, but yes, Danny Phantom is in that. Danny Phantom fandom is still pretty hot on the internet, certainly on DeviantArt.
Oh, yeah.
I did also find an interesting thing I had not heard of before until looking into, like, what are the memes of Danny Phantom. There is a contingent in the trans community that sees Danny Phantom's story as, you know, a trans story. Like a lot of trans mask people I've seen that grew up fans of Danny Phantom view Danny Phantom as a trans mask kind of mascot as well, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm sure Butch Hartman hates that.
Sure, yeah. but I saw a video where Steven Silver approved of it, and he's like, you know, obviously we didn't write the character that way. It was basically at a con, a couple of trans fans asked him, like, hey, what do you think of this? He's like, oh, that's cool. I like that. So... but yes, that's the status of Danny Phantom these days. I'm sure all the voice actors will be ready to do it again, but I'm pretty sure Hartman, like, legally can stop them from making more Danny Phantom if it's not with him. So that's the history of Danny Phantom. When we come back, we will talk about the first episode of the show, Mystery Meat.
Your heart has rendered your worth. Now bear the shame, like dead trees in cold December. Nothing but ashes remain.
Coming April 2004, Nickelodeon's new action hero is going ghost.
I'm going ghost! I think I figured out what these powers are for. I hope I'm right!
Danny Phantom, a brand new Nicktoon series coming this April to Nickelodeon. Not seeing is believing.
Hey, I'm Danny Fenton. Until recently, I was pretty sure that I knew who I was. Just an ordinary kid, dealing with embarrassing parents and a nosy big sister. The girl I have a huge crush on, and the huge bully who wants to crush me. But ever since high school started, the kid I thought I knew is starting to disappear.
Danny Phantom. This morning at 11 o'clock, 10 Central, only on Nick.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Break, and I'm going to catch them all because I'm Henry Gilbert.
Hey everybody, this is Bob Mackey. I'm the president of the Lunch Lady Anti-Defamation League. How's it going?
And welcome to The Break of this episode with our special guest, Professor Gascan, a premium level patron who picked out us to do our very first Butch Hartman Nickelodeon cartoon show. And we wouldn't be able to do this as our full-time job and cover shows like Danny Phantom if it wasn't for awesome patrons like Professor Gascan and others who sign up at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That's right. If you want to be equally awesome, head on over to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level. When you do, get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and then also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all of our limited miniseries to date for the past 4+ years, like Talking Critic, Talk King of the Hill, Talking Mission Hill, and Talking Futurama. And coming very soon at the end of October, we'll be doing Blabbing About Batman, the animated series, our 10-episode miniseries about our 10 favorite episodes of Batman, the animated series. It's all happening behind the $5 paywall at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and there is a $10 level as well. Sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff, but also access to one mega long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon and Movie podcast, our premium exclusive podcast only for subscribers at the Patreon at $10 a month. You get all the $5 things Bob just mentioned, and then you get an exclusive extra podcast each month of us going super in-depth into an animated feature film, like most recently our over 4 hours of talk about The Road to El Dorado, which you got to hear the free preview of on this feed last week, and all the previous ones, which include The Lion King, Hercules, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That was our Summer of Disney Renaissance, and a giant back catalog that covers things from Akira to A Goofy Movie and so many more. Coming at the end of this month, Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, to finish a scary month of Halloween thrills. Check it all out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you sign up, you're given access to a code. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And that way you can download all of our bonus podcasts alongside all of your regular podcasts as part of your podcasting lifestyle. And there is a Patreon app as well for any smart device you might have. So either way you do it, it is so easy to access all the bonus content waiting for you at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Now, why don't we all go ghost and check out the rest of our podcast about Danny Phantom?
He's a phantom.
Young Danny Phantom, he was just 14 when his parents built a very strange machine.
It was designed to view a world unseen. He's gonna catch 'em all 'cause he's Danny Phantom.
When it didn't quite work, his folks, they just quit. But then Danny took a look inside of it.
There was a great big flash, everything just changed.
His molecules got all rearranged. When he first woke up, he realized he had snow white hair and glowing green eyes. He could walk through walls, disappear, and fly. He was much more unique than the other guy, and it was then that he knew what he had to do. He had to stop all the ghosts that were coming through.
He's here to fight for me and you. He's gonna catch 'em all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. He's gonna catch 'em all 'cause he's Danny Phantom. He's gonna catch 'em all 'cause he's Danny Phantom.
We are back. You just got to hear the classic Danny Phantom opening, which I think owes more than a little to Pokemon. I'd say.
I think that was the one thing I remember about the show is like the theme song is very catchy. It also has the lyric "Gotta catch 'em all."
Gonna catch 'em all.
I'm sorry.
Totally different.
It's like, yeah, I would change those lyrics. I would have stuck with the original theme song because it does just sound like a Queen and Ghostbusters mashup, which is a lot of fun. But I guess they thought that wasn't cool enough for a 14-year-old demographic.
You need the rapping for the kids, man. Yeah.
Premise explaining theme song, which I always appreciate. I do want to say this is available on Paramount Plus, and I recently subscribed to it for a lot of reasons. There's things on there I want to watch, and I will say that Joe Biden is doing a lot for us. I'm not a huge fan of him, but he got us out of Afghanistan. He's doing vaccine mandates. We need across-the-board legislation to make streaming platforms better. Paramount Plus sucks. I paid $10 a month. They're like $5 a month, no ads. $5 a month ads, $10 a month no ads. Sign up for $10 a month. I start watching something. Your program will begin after this message. After this message, and then it's like, why don't you watch Picard? That seems pretty cool. I'm like, I paid to not see this. And sometimes they'll load what seems like an ad, but it's actually like, this show belongs to CBS. We're gonna like interrupt your life for 30 seconds to let you know that now you can watch the show.
Apparently, a lot of the networks don't count internal ads as an ad. They're like, no, we're just advertising. When I started the episode this morning to watch it one more time, it was like, first it tells me that the new SpongeBob movie's streaming on there. Then it shows me the like, hey, this is Nickelodeon. And then after that, it then shows the Nickelodeon studio ident again. I'm like, you can't tell me twice Nickelodeon made this. One or the other.
The Nickelodeon ident is baked into this show. But I guess there's weird rights, like you have to tell them which network that aired on. People need to know.
I guess because Paramount Plus grew out of CBS All Access, so maybe that's why the rules are still. I don't know.
I just hate every platform. Every streaming platform sucks. And again, Sleepy Joe
streaming
needs to get on it.
Streaming is the new television, and what does cable television have? It has fucking advertisements all over the place, even though you paid for it.
Yeah, man. The compliment I'll give Paramount Plus over Peacock and even HBO Max is that you do get to pick your own avatar for your account,
and there's like 10 of them.
Sure, but hey, I'm Patrick Starr. I'm happy to be Patrick Starr.
Disney Plus added like 5 Simpsons avatars. It's weird.
At least they finally did.
And one of them is Dr. Hibbert.
That to me feels like they were told.
I still have a grudge on Peacocks.
Can you have one African American
in
here?
vanilla Law and Order.
No, well, because the Peacock app, it's got Law and Order starting with season 13. Who wants to watch? Like, sure, the post 9/11 Law and Orders are fine if if that's your propaganda flavor, which I like. If I'm going to watch cop propaganda, then Law and Order is my pick. But the first 12 seasons are way better than the second 12 seasons.
Also, I apologize to Bob. We're going to bring this up every time we mention a streaming service with me on the episode.
I'm sorry for derailing this, but I'm just very frustrated at streaming networks now.
Also, like the list feature or the next episode thing on Paramount Plus doesn't really work that well either. And then also they don't have, as we talked about on our Laverne and Shirley one, they don't even have any of the Happy Days averse.
Yeah.
They have 10 episodes of Happy Days.
What are they hiding? Is there a Blackface Fonzie episode that they can't show us?
The other 80 episodes are just him in blackface.
That was a weird couple of seasons.
But yeah, so Danny Phantom, though, seemingly uncut on Paramount Plus. I haven't heard of like the lost episode of Danny Phantom that's on the channel, though there are still a few jokes in this show that I'm like, boy, they wouldn't do that joke now. The episode begins with Jack speaking first, his big dumb dad. I love big stupid dads, especially this guy who's like all rectangle.
No legs, really. Just like kind of feet sticking out of a jumpsuit.
And he is such a like 60s dad. Like he is such a Cold War dad. Him and Stan Smith are kind of the same guy from American Dad.
Yeah, that's true.
Dudes.
Yeah, they kind of are.
American Dad 1 year later.
And of course, you know he's named Jack because his son's name is Danny, the father-son combo from The Shining.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But also, it wouldn't be a Hartman show without a stupid, clueless father and a hot wife. So it's in this case, his wife is Maddie, who's rarely wearing normal clothes, I'll say. And then, of course, Sam. We get an intro of all the characters. His son just wants to be an astronaut. He doesn't want to hunt ghosts. We've got Sam, who she's so goth she thinks ghosts are mainstream, which I like that line. And then his other friend Tucker Foley, who there's Chris Tucker and Alex Foley of film fame. So I do think that's kind of a reference there.
I took Sam to be like she can hang with the guys. She's Sam.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's her name.
Yeah.
They also have a series of jokes in the show of like Tucker seeing her as one of the guys, and then she shows up wearing like a dress looking cute, and he's like, oh, maybe she's not one of the guys. But also I think most Nickelodeon shows had a best friend who was a girl that characters would then say, she's not my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, that line would be said quite a lot.
Yeah, that's in this episode is that line.
Yes, yeah, directly.
Seeing her again, and I was just thinking, wow, this was the era where Hot Topic Topic hit it big mainstream.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I,
yeah.
hey, look, I love a goth girl in the show. Sam is a fun character too.
The current identity of Hot Topic is there are 800 different T-shirts in this store, and we will ask you if you found anything every 40 seconds because we know you're going to steal from us.
Yes,
they don't
yeah.
trust any customer in that store.
Yeah, and they're like, look, did you want a wrestling T-shirt or did you want a Mad Hatter T-shirt? We got both. We got
We got a lot of Skellington things.
Yeah. Anyway, I do like the concept of that his stupid dad builds all these ghost catching tech, even though he's never seen a ghost before, and half of it works, but he has no clue that it works. It's also in Hartman stuff, definitely there's a Flanderization of dumb characters that get increasingly stupider as the show goes. That Jack starts this stupid shows you how dumb he's going to get by season 2. I love his line of just saying like, but since it doesn't work, it's just a thermos with the Fenton logo on the front of it. And you know what? If they're going to make a Ghostbuster style trap, but with a thermos, change it up. That's legally distinct. And though I looked it up, there wasn't a lot of, I didn't see a lot of Danny Phantom toys from the era that at least that were sold on eBay. The most I could find when I searched Danny Phantom toys, other than, modern day Funko Pops, were a Burger King line of toys that they had in like 2005.
It felt like, I wasn't an adult at the time, but it felt like in the early aughts or in the aughts in general, Nickelodeon was not as much about merchandising outside of like video games.
Yeah. It's interesting. But
Yeah, not a lot of merch for Danny Phantom. Mostly just SpongeBob.
yes, in this first clip here, a lot of the action happens off screen as his dad stupidly describes stuff about ghosts.
Sam, Tucker, this is the Fenton thermos. It's supposed to trap ghosts. But since it doesn't work yet, it's just a thermos. A thermos with the word Fenton in front of it. And that is the Fenton portal. It releases ghosts into our world whether I want it to or not. And someday, I'll figure out how that works too. Now, who wants to hunt some ghosts? You kids, look at you. You're too excited to speak. So I'll just go on speaking. I was born many years ago in a log cabin in the woods. I don't exactly remember where, but I do know I wanted a pony. Never got the pony. As a matter of fact, we had to eat horse meat during the war. I had a problem with that.
Those sound like Rob Paulson ad-libs to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
I gotta say, I kind of wish he was voiced by a different person. Like, I appreciate that Rob Paulson's doing kind of an atypical voice for him, but I kind of wish it was someone who sounded older and gruffer.
Yeah, I can see it. I think Paulson is really good as being a smug moron, though. Like, it's not like a redux of like Pinky or Yakko or whatever. Yeah.
It is a bit like Major Glory, though.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. Which,
Yeah, it is.
absolutely.
It kind of is.
Yeah, which Hartman wrote a million Major Glory bits. So he probably was just like, hey, can you just do Major Glory except a little older?
It's a bit more smug.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, more nasally.
I love his story too of like eating horse meat in the war, which his dad does have white streaks, but what war is he talking about? Like during Vietnam?
The Gulf War.
In the Gulf War.
Yeah, Korea.
He was very confused.
But also all the stuff of the action happening off screen, like he's missing all of these ghosts. Like that sets the tone of the show that he's a dumb idiot, but his son is having cool adventures, but also that they can barely show a punch landing. You can't do that.
And that he created the portal that sends ghosts into the world, and it also transformed his son. So his dad just like made the premise. He made like the hero and the enemies at the same time, basically.
That's good. Too, that totally fits with like the science experiment gone wrong origins of so many superheroes in the 60s. Spider-Man most famously. But, I also like that the opening explains the premise, but they actually don't do an origin episode. The season 2 premiere actually is a half flashback origin episode that shows you exactly how it happened. But the opening does it enough. And Butch Hartman is credited writer of the lyrics of it, which it also does follow in that way the pattern of Fairly Odd Parents, which is just like Timmy is an average kid that no one understands. And then same with this, like he was a kid and now he's Danny Phantom, did-a-do. Like
Very catchy, again. Good theme song.
And the theme song is performed by DJ D-Rec, who is famous for being on Nick Cannon's Wild and Out.
That's like 85% of MTV programming now. Maybe 90%.
Might be. Yeah, Nick Cannon. He's most of MTV. I don't know how he's sustained that level of popularity so long. But
About the last thing I remember Nick Cannon being on an MTV was him bringing a snake into someone's room and it pooping all over the floor.
God. But yeah, the kids, we get the big action scene with all the colors and the Pokemon type feel to it and origin, and we get shots of all of like the villains we're gonna see on the show too. It's fun. I like it.
And I always like shows with title cards.
Oh yeah,
And these are made. I haven't watched any more of these, but are all these made to look like lobby cards for like old sci-fi or horror movies?
They definitely have the feel of like a 50s B movie or like a Jack Kirby style kind of cover too. Yeah, it's definitely pulled from that era, which Hartman born in 65, so it fits with his life. And yeah, also, that title shot of him next to the title and then he punches a thing behind him. Like Nickelodeon didn't always like when punches hit things. Like they try to hold back on that, and here he gets to like punch a specter.
Well, in a lot of the show, their punches are thrown, but you don't see what happens afterwards.
Yeah. I saw one where like the Vlad character beats the crap out of Danny, but the tone is really weird because it's the scene where Vlad has powers similar to Danny, but he's way better at it because he's more practiced. And Danny's like, how do you do all these things? And he says, I've had years of practice, years you're not going to have. And then it kind of does a cutaway to the outside, and you just hear like cartoony oof, ow, ooh, ah, ee. But then it cuts back to Danny just falling on the ground, like kind of bruised and slightly bloody. And it's like, oh, wait, this is supposed to be kind of dramatic that the villain just kicked his ass and is about to kill him. But it's played cartoony. That's the biggest problem Danny Phantom has, is that it can't fully choose what world it wants to be in.
Yeah.
Almost like a boy who's a ghost and a boy at the same time. But yes, it does have real title cards. This I did want to quickly mention the art director for the series, Bob Boyle, who did a lot of work on Fairly Odd Parents and then moved over to Danny Phantom. He also helped a lot with the consistent tone and style of it, fitting the Hartman thing. He would go on to work on his own shows for Nickelodeon and now is a Netflix guy.
The color design on the show is really cool, I thought, especially with how background characters will kind of be the same color as the backgrounds. Like in the school, like the characters who are talking will be your normal colors, but then the school is all blue. All the background characters are shades of blue.
Yeah, it kind of has the feel to me of like the early Batman shows that the story was they painted on black, and so like it has that kind of darker tone to it, even though it's it's an all digital show. It's not. I believe it was always digital. It didn't have any cell stuff. By 04, pretty much every major show like that out of rough draft, you're going digital. And the composer for pretty much all of the show is Guy Moon, who's written for a million things. He was a composer on Two Stupid Dogs and Fairly Odd Parents. Also a composer on Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue.
Oh, okay.
But
Alan Menken wrote all those songs.
The big songs, yes. Yeah.
Howard Ashman, too.
The Guy Moon song he most famously did in Danny Phantom was he faced a evil punk rock girl named Ember. And so, Amber, you will remember my name.
Yeah, that's like the one part every fan remembers more than any other in this whole series.
Huh.
It's a song about remembering things, so it worked. Yeah,
yeah, see, it worked on you.
But I mean, too, she's like a hot evil girl. Like that's also probably why some people remember her. But yes, just like in Batman 66, the villain guest voice is credited right at the start. We see Patricia Heaton as Lunch Lady Ghost, and the Lunch Lady Ghost would make other appearances, but I would guess Heaton was a little too busy with Ray, and so Kath Soucie voices the Lunch Lady Ghost for her other appearances, unfortunately. And
this should say one thing this show does do a lot better than I would say. I for some reason, the closest thing I think of to this is Batman Beyond, but it does do the whole Rogues Gallery thing so much better than that did. Partly because Danny doesn't kill all of his villains when he first sees them.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of Terry's villains are one-offs. Like, I think he only faces like a handful more than once. But here, this is more interested in having a complete rogues gallery too. I guess on Batman Beyond, their fear was like, well, we can't just copy all the Batman villains. He can't face everybody is the future version of the guy he used to fight. But in this show, they're just like, well, no, just take that Spider-Man villain and make him like a ghost, you know?
I also think by 2004, we had reached the end of Lunch Lady humor because the identity of the Lunch Lady changed from some haggard old woman to basically immigrants, you know, serving your children. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like, who is doing all the food service work in the world in America?
Yeah, it's not the elderly. Those ladies died out and were not replaced with new old ladies. Yeah,
I love Lunch Lady Land, co-written by Bob Odenkirk, by the way.
That's true. A true classic Lunch Lady Land. Plus, like the most of early Nickelodeon's ads were about a gross old lunch lady, saying like, "You're gonna eat this and not watch Nickelodeon."
And also, we never had mystery meat in my cafeteria. The biggest item of desire was cheese sticks, which was just fried cheese. Every Friday, it was cheese sticks, and we were all about that. It was like a sensation in my high school.
I brown bagged it every single day of my childhood, so I didn't have much contact with lunch ladies. And the only like one day a week I'd be jealous of my friends who got the lunch plate, because there's something about that square of pizza you can get at in the lunchroom back then. It was attractive to me.
It was cooked 5 years ago, just thought out.
Yeah, it's purely an aesthetic thing. The taste is not there. Speaking as someone who's been a lunch ticket kid pretty much his entire life from kindergarten to through high school.
And so once the opening's over, we head over to the Fenton Works building, definitely the Ghostbusters home base as well. And this is where we meet Jazz, who I think it's supposed to be a joke that she is too nurturing or too worried about kids. Honestly, she feels like a joke about how censors on their shows were probably telling them like, kids are not developing properly if they watch shows like this. But I just agree with her in all cases. She's like, no, you live in a traumatic home life. You need to fix this and read about therapy.
I mean, I saw her design and I was like, this activated so many children. They're sure. I figured out I like girls now.
The other thing that activated children was the ghost werewolf, I'm probably thinking.
Oh, yeah. It covers, that's, again, I said it before, but I think Hartman is embarrassed that he learned he had so many things that activated fetishes in the kids watching the show who grew up to be adults. Like, I don't think he wanted people to point out to him like, hey, that the mom with these big hips in this tight plastic outfit, like that excited me. He's like, hey, you're not supposed to say that out loud, guys. No.
They kind of play it off like, his sister's being insincere just to get something out of him. But I do appreciate that they don't go with that. She is just the supportive older sibling.
Yeah, no, she's like a very supportive, helpful person who, when she learns his secret, like it absolutely would work in it as a queer metaphor, because she sees him transform. He's worried she found out his secret identity. She pretends that she didn't figure it out. And then when he flies away, she says, he'll tell me when he's ready, which like that is very like, how is that not about a sibling learning about, that their other sibling is gay or whatever, and deciding to let, like, they'll tell me in their own time. I don't want to force this. Like that, it absolutely works for that. But yes, the family has a very tense breakfast.
Actually, I need to tell you guys something.
That's not all you need, Danny. You need guidance and parents who can provide it.
Sweetie, I know what we do doesn't make sense sometimes, but you're only
16. Biologically, but psychologically, I'm an adult, and I will not allow your insane obsession with ghosts to pollute the mind of this impressionable little child. Come, you abused, unwanted wretch. I'll drive you to school.
Huh. That's weird. Jasmine never offers to drive Danny to school.
That can only mean one thing. That's not our daughter. That's a ghost. Daddy, no, it's a trap!
These jokes are good, but they do also involve abusing a 16-year-old girl and her parents thinking she's crazy.
Yeah, she really gets it in this episode.
Which, again, it's hard not to agree with her when she's like, no, you're literally insane. You almost killed me later in this episode. We should live elsewhere and not with our insane parents.
There should be a social worker visiting this house.
But this is one of many times where Danny almost comes out to his parents and chooses not to. And then again, Jazz, his very supportive sister, drives him to Casper High, obviously named after the famous ghost. And this is when we get another very funny scene. I like this bit of Sam discussing problems with their friends here.
I think I should tell them.
Why? Parents don't listen. Even worse, they don't understand. Why can't they accept me for who I am?
Sam, I'm talking about my powers, my problems.
Oh, right. Me too.
It's been a month since the accident, and I still barely have any control. If somebody catches me, I go from geek to freak around here.
Kinda like what you're doing now?
Oh, darn it! If my dad can invent something that accidentally made me half ghost, why can't he invent something that turns me back to normal?
Danny, your powers make you unique. Unique is good. That's why I'm an ultra-recyclo-vegetarian.
Which means what?
She doesn't eat anything with a face on it.
Who cares about that stuff?
I like the message that Sam has of like, Danny wants to be normal. He's like, I wish I could get a machine that makes me normal. And Sam's like, no, it's fun to be weird. Let's be weird. Like, be unique. Like, it's a nice message, though. I still think that the show goes against her too much, and starting with this very episode.
It's a bit cruel, to this character. But it is very early aughts, epic bacon comedy.
Yep.
And,
Tucker is an epic bacon bro for sure.
Everybody hates vegetarians.
Yep, yeah, don't they?
Always making their own choices about their personal lives. Damn them.
Yeah.
Damn curse those handsome devils.
What's that?
Kind of a wasted joke. He phases through the snack machine, but nothing really happens.
Yeah.
I kind of expected him to be like pull something out of his pocket and just hand it to Tucker or something.
Yeah, be like, oh, Doritos. Look at that.
I actually rewound the show because I was like, yeah, he walked through the snack machine, but there was no gag.
Yeah, I know. It's I at least
a
like
snack machine that's also just in the middle of the hallway for some reason.
I do like that they use it as a thing of like, in high school you're scared of like, tripping and falling or you're popping a boner or whatever. And here he's just like, what if I phase through a wall? Everybody will laugh at me. But yeah, I hate to bring up This Just In again, but very much so, a plot of This Just In is the regular guy and his black friend agreeing that the hot girl is crazy, and that this is what this is here. I'm just like, can you believe this girl? She wouldn't want to eat meat. Meat's great. Shut up, stupid. And then on top of that, not only is this a very Bush era vegetarian joke about how crazy they are, but also how they force their stuff on you.
That's how it happens.
Yeah, they'd take over and they'd use the courts and the schools to make you. I mean, I also feel like this is Hartman talking about how they don't teach the Bible in school anymore. And he's just like, what's next? They're going to make my kids eat vegetarian on top of not being able to pray? But yes, she, like an evil liberal, Sam uses the system to force people not to eat meat and have everybody eat what vegetarians, of course, eat, which is grass on bread and mud.
Yeah, we eat dirt and turf.
Yep. That's all you need if you're a vegetarian. I know it's a comedic premise, but it's very unfair as a culture war.
They're not as harsh on the meat lovers. The meat lover joke is like, he likes meat because it's good.
Yeah,
and he'll eat a lot of it.
Couldn't they do a joke about, like, they don't have any joke about how the health implications of eating that much meat or eating rancid meat or anything? Like, it's just meat is good. Being a vegetarian is stupid and gross. This, unfortunately, though, changes the menu at the school, which had never been changed in 50 years, activating a ghost, a dead old lunch lady who also just flies right by the parents, which, again, I also like the comedy of the father tearing his own hair out, though that feels more like a Fairly Odd Parents joke than a Danny Phantom joke.
Yeah, because when they show him again, his hair's just back.
Yeah, because I saw interviews where Marmel was saying, like, no, this is more in the real world and realistic than Fairly Odd Parents. But a character ripping his hair fully out of his head and then it being back in the next scene is not that. We head back to the lunchroom. We get our first appearance of Lancer, voiced ably by Ron Perlman in this next clip.
Don't you think this is a little extreme, Sam?
Ah, Miss Manson. The school board wanted me to personally thank you for ushering in this welcome experiment to our cafeteria.
Meet. Near.
No, the rumors about the new all-steak buffet in the teacher's lounge are completely untrue. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks again for making us eat garbage, Sam.
It's not garbage. It's recyclable organic matter.
It's garbage.
And even Danny agrees. He's supposed later it's about Sam versus Tucker and they disagree. And it's like Danny's stuck in the middle and doesn't make a choice. But right here he makes a choice. He's like, I agree, this is garbage. Fuck your vegetarian stuff.
It's about that for like 20 seconds. The episode doesn't really seem to dwell on it for very long.
And Perlman, he's like kind of creepy, but can also be like furious and scary. Like he's either quiet or extra angry. And I guess he also the reason he approves of it is to make the children suffer and I guess steal the meat that they were going to eat and put that into the teacher's
meat buffet or whatever.
Yeah. Another couple of Spider-Man parallels appear. Spider-Man has spider sense. Danny Phantom has ghost breath. When his ghost breath comes out, that's when he knows a ghost is there. And Spider-Man has Flash Thompson. That's totally different from Dash. Flash and Dash, totally different guys. Danny Phantom has his own bully in the case of Dash, who I do like he's at least a little more self-aware in this quick clip.
All because of your girlfriend.
She's not my girlfriend.
I'm not his girlfriend.
These are the best years of my life. After high school, it's all downhill for me. How am I supposed to enjoy my glory days eating mud?
Actually, it's topsoil.
Whatever. Eat it. All of it.
Garbage fight!
Danny even calls it a garbage fight, not a food fight, because it is not food.
I like that they gave him a Roger Klotz style bully voice instead of a "duh, you're gonna get it"
Yeah, that's true. I do
kind
like
of voice.
that.
He's not Moose.
And he is self-aware enough to know that he's going to peak in high school. I do like that.
Did you see
I love that.
the Fairly Odd Parents Easter egg?
Oh, I missed this.
When things are being thrown in the food fight, there's a Crash Nebula lunchbox. That's from Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, that's good.
I couldn't pause in time to see what it said.
There's like one frame, and
Okay.
it's hard to actually do that on Paramount Plus. It took about 3 minutes of work.
Well, it was even harder to do it where I was watching it.
Yeah, it's a fun little food fight. Again, grounding this very much in classic high school japery. And they sneak off into the lunchroom as cover for the food fight. That's when they run into the evil ghost lunch lady, Patricia Heaton. I think she does a good little job with it. I mean, it's a very stock character of screaming lunch lady.
They didn't need her to play this role.
No,
not really.
But I mean, she was very famous at the time.
That was a
I'd say
huge sitcom.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be so bad. She looks a little like my grandmother. Shouldn't she be haunting a bingo hall?
Hello, children. Can you help me? Today's lunch is meatloaf, but I don't see the meatloaf. Did someone change the menu?
Yeah, she did.
The menu has been the same for 50 years!
Get behind me!
Wow, I feel safe.
I'm going ghost!
And then he transforms in a for ambitious for TV character turnaround for him.
Is that "I'm going ghost" his catchphrase?
It is his catchphrase.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, it's his flame on thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is fitting because that character did play Johnny Storm in the Ultimate Spider-Man video game.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. It totally fits.
The ghost action is cool. I've only watched one of these, so I don't know if he does this more, but I found that he relied on the turning people into ghosts and going through walls technique. It happens maybe 5 or 6 times in this episode.
He learns more powers throughout the series, so he doesn't just do this. Also is kind of like a showcase for like the first set of powers. A lot of episodes are like Danny learns a new power, but he has trouble using it. Like, oh, Danny can turn walls invisible, or Danny can create clones of himself, or whatever.
I hope there aren't serious implications when he turns his friends into ghosts. Like, well, now you can't die.
You're clinically dead for a minute here, or actually it took 5 years off your life to do this, or whatever. Yeah, the action sequence is fun and all. I like his little I command you to go away.
Go away.
Yeah, like he's not very he's not very confident as a hero yet. He's still learning. Like he said earlier, he's only a month into having these powers. It's fun. It's fun little stuff. Him catching all the dishes, and then the kids are offered a slice of cake by the lunch lady, but it's a ghost slice of cake. Could you even eat that? I wonder. And also when she sends the stoves at them, I noted the green magical fire.
Me too. We've learned from our friend Ian Jones-Cordy that when you have fire in a show, it cannot be traditional red or I guess blue fire that comes out of your stove.
It can't look like real fire, but if it's green fire, somehow that's okay. Even if it works the same as fire does.
This is where the art style really kind of clashes with the action. Because something I noticed watching this is every time they do something, it's like, here's the windup and here's the pitch. Like nothing is as smooth as you want it to be.
I think that's the inherent stiffness of the Hartman style, like, and that's coming out of his cartoon factory. Like, there's only so much you can do with that to make action work, and that kind of flat style also exists in the Dexter Laboratory show, and it works better, I think, just because Tartakovsky and his friends are better at doing action in that style than Hartman is. Like Hartman's more of a sitcom guy, not an action guy. Meanwhile, Tartakovsky, Renzetti, McCracken, those guys, masters of doing action in that UPA style. But the action here is, it's nice. Like, you get to see him learning his powers as he goes. He kind of stretches himself out like Plastic Man. I also like the ambitiousness of an Akira-like monster made of sentient meat. Maybe, too, that's because one time he punches her when she's in her ghost form. I wonder if they were told, like, we don't want Danny Phantom beating up an old lady, even if it's a mean ghost.
Was that one of those punches where you see the punch pose and then you see the sound effect and then you see the person flying?
The typography, like wham, pow.
Yes, yeah. But when it happened, I was like, Danny Phantom just punched an old lady. I mean, it's a ghost and it's self-defense, but still... Also, Lancer, then the meat is taken away from him to be made into the sentient meat creature. And Lancer does the first of his running joke, which is exclamations that are titles of classic literature.
Oh, okay.
So when he screams, "Paradise Lost," that's what it is. And there's some cute little back and forth, like Sam says, "This is the thanks I get for thinking like an individual," when she's being taken away. And then Danny says, like, "The only thing that has an expiration date here is you." But of course, that's when he transforms back. And I noticed this a bit in several episodes. It's like, oh, would the fight be resolved right now? Well, then Danny uncontrollably changes back into his human form. So now the plot can continue.
His other power is to generate an act break.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot watching this. I was like, man, this is really weirdly paced. Like, you would expect this to almost be over by now.
Yes, he loses his power at the most inopportune time, as happens to all of our teen superheroes we love. And Sam is kidnapped in the first episode, kidnapped and turned into the damsel in distress already. Just as Danny wants to stop it, he can't because he has detention. And he's dragged away into detention while the lunch lady flies off. When we come back from the commercial break, Lancer is reading the boys the riot act in detention, which also helpfully explains who the characters are.
Tucker Foley, chronic tardiness, talking in class, repeated loitering by the girls' locker room. Danny Fenton, 34 dropped beakers in the last month. Banned for life from handling all fragile school property, but no severe mischief before today. So, gentlemen, tell me.
Why did the two of you conspire to destroy the school cafeteria?
Dash started it. He threw
4 touchdown passes in the last game and is thereby exempt from scorn. You two, however, are not. I'll map out your punishment when I return. Mr. Baxter, watch the door.
We gotta find Sam. For some reason, I feel like I got her kidnapped. Maybe because you told the ghost she changed the menu? How about that?
I love the promo line ratings, but yeah, the pacing is weird because in an 11-minute cartoon, they would fight the lunch lady and then it would be over. Now it's like they fought the lunch lady, they escaped, And now the school day is just continuing. Is the
Yes.
lunch lady still in the cafeteria kitchen?
And now they got to find the lunch lady again and fight her again, but then lose again. So that girls' locker room joke, that's one of those things that like felt okay to joke about in 2004. Like, oh, boys will be boys. They're going to try to peep in the girls' locker room. But now, like, no, you never do that joke in a kid's show.
And the look on his face is like, yeah, I'm a perv. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, and then when I watched the season 2 premiere, they have multiple girls' locker room jokes there too. Like Danny, apparently, they have a joke that Danny had used his powers at least once to sneak into the girls' locker room and hide out there as a joke. Yes, which that's even worse to me because it's like, hey, Tucker is his bad boyfriend and you can have him do darker jokes than your main character can do. But when they do jokes of like, oh yeah, Danny would sneak into the girls' locker room, like that's not a hero. Like, that's why they make a point in Superman cartoons to say that when he gets his X-ray vision, that he says, I would never use my X-ray vision to peep at girls. I'm too good of a person.
Well, I can assure you all the tweens watching this were thinking if I had ghost powers, it's the first thing I would do is look at girls naked.
Yeah, probably.
Well, because all tweens are like horny
Definitely.
sickos. Like,
With no morality.
Yes. But you're not supposed to say that.
No.
You can't endorse that as a cool thing a character should do. But I guess really that's on Lancer too. He should be punishing this kid more. If you're caught outside the girls' locker room once, like that's I don't know, suspension, dude. Like you gotta have zero tolerance there.
Yeah, that's in-house for you. I do like that there isn't really much differentiating Dash from like a Flash Thompson, except that he's a huge suck up to the principal and the teachers.
That's true. Most football team captains, they're not also the suck up to a teacher. That's true. That's an extra bit to him. And his voice is so whiny. Like Bob said, it is not the typical moose kind of voice you give these guys. But I do love the delivery of him saying like, but Dash scored 4 touchdowns in the last game and is thus exempt from scoring. But you guys,
he's very upfront about the preferential treatment he's giving this football player.
Yeah, Tucker having no guilt is also a very he's like, well, yeah, meat's good and I love meat. I feel nothing wrong about this. And so they sneak away. Another great Perlman delivery of his line of like, your punishment will be worse than you can imagine when he sees they're gone. Thanks to Tucker's magical smelling abilities, they're able to follow them to the meat locker, which honestly should have been their first guess.
There's
anyway.
like a giant meat warehouse in this school. What's happening here?
The weird high budget at this school for all of this meat. Like
it's the size of a gymnasium. This meat storage facility.
Yeah, really, she should be made entirely of Salisbury steak. That should be the one meat-like product that's in the lunchroom.
Yeah, there are some fine cuts of meat she's made out of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have some like cartoon hams with the bones out in them too.
Which, hey, look, always delicious to me. Especially when they have like the cross stitching on them on a big cartoon bone-in ham. That's the delicious. My lips are watering right now.
Or just like a big furry turkey leg.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
That just like stretches, the meat stretches off of. Yeah. Also, though, when they catch her cornering her in her speech about how like meat is good, meat does this, that makes me think about like just a big speech by a conservative person of like, you need meat now, turn away from it is un-American. And then of course we get an old stand-up classic of chicken or fish. Like
that was never an option for me in my life.
No way.
No, never.
It was pretty, this is a tiny spoiler for the film Shang-Chi, but in that they actually have a like beef or vegetarian meal joke on an airplane. I was like, wow, an airplane food joke? I just feel so old.
Chicken or fish was like the airplane food choice, I guess. And then like now, 20 years later or whatever, it's like you pay $14 for a little cheese plate.
Yes.
And that's your option.
I mean, I've mainly, the only thing I've flown post-COVID has been Southwest, which they're like, if you get a glass of water, you're lucky. Like,
having just flown very recently, I would say don't eat anything in an airport. Just bring your own food before you get there.
but not your own alcohol. That's against the rules now.
Bring it there in your tummy.
Yeah. I got a pregame before this flight. But yeah, so this is when the fight happens where Danny straight up punches the lunch lady ghost across the room. And Sam, meanwhile, could be pulled out of this pile of meat she's stuck in, but instead, Sam has to watch Tucker eat it. And
I'm
that
glad
should be
that
filthy.
he didn't eat it. He's about to, right?
Right,
He's
right.
about to
Yeah.
eat raw meat. He's such a meat fiend.
The sicko kid.
I didn't like hearing about his meat streak.
Ew.
That sounds like he's having digestive problems.
Oh,
when you start getting meat streaks,
You're right.
look out
yeah.
for that.
See, if it would have been fair they could call vegetarian food garbage if they would at least have him say, like, I sweat all the time and have had one heart attack already at 16, but I don't
have
care.
a bowel movement every 3 weeks, just like John Wayne.
I like my meat like I like my milk raw.
Then during the fight, the lunch lady catches him and says, you need to eat more meat. You're all skin and bones, meaning he's not strong enough to beat her up. Then she throws a bunch of kebabs at him, which, again, I get the joke is like he has to dodge flying meat. What's a bunch of meat he can dodge? But no school in the United States would have kebabs to
No,
serve.
too foreign.
Yes, yeah.
No, I don't even think the charter schools have kebabs anymore.
Well, because then they would you're going to have something that fancy or special, you also would be beefless. You wouldn't have beef at the place. He dodges it going Plastic Man style. She then turns into an even bigger meat sludge monster, which is totally just Clayface. Like it becomes Clayface.
Oh, yeah,
from
100%.
Batman. Yeah, then Danny has to run away once more. And this is another key component to Danny as he runs away and makes them both go phase through walls with him. He runs out of power and passes out because he does not have limitless energy like, say, Superman.
Yeah, I enjoyed this more than I thought I would, but the pacing is so weird where they have 3 fights with this character, with this enemy, and they run away 2 times, and then it's just like, well, what is she doing after they run away?
She helpfully just hangs out until the next
Yeah.
act. Yeah. And so we cut back to the home. Jazz is assaulted by her parents. Like they try to trap her in a ghost sucking machine. They try to make the mom not as crazy, but she's joining in as much as the father is in this. Jack's just like crazier about it. And I love her response of just like, this is all going in the memoir as she walks off. Then the parents also have a very funny reaction to seeing their passed out son walked into the home by their friends.
This is all going in the memoir.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Fenton, what a school day. Poor Danny nodded off. We figured we'd just carry him all the way home and tuck him into bed without any parental interaction whatsoever.
Don't get up. We know where to go. Bye.
Jack, Danny is not a ghost.
You're right. Jazz is.
What's going on? You passed out. We took you home. You've been asleep for 4 days. 4 days? Nah, it's only been a couple hours.
Knock it off, Tucker. This is the second time today your carelessness almost got him killed.
Me? I almost got him killed? The only reason this happened is because you had to be unique. You had to take the meat away, and I'm gonna get it back.
You want to change that menu back? You're gonna have to go through me to do it!
Well, I'm sure everything will be back to normal by tomorrow. Or not. Maybe it'll be worse.
Or not. No. Yeah. A couple times when Sam screams, she does turn into Icky Vicky, the babysitter.
Same voice actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Is it the same voice actor?
or is Tara Strong Icky Vicky? I gotta look this
Tara
up.
Strong is Vicky.
This is Gray Griffin.
Yeah, it's Gray. I think she goes by Gray Griffin now. Yeah, but
No, it's okay. Yeah, so it's
Gray Griffin is Vicky. Or
she is.
All right.
See, she confused me because she changed her last name.
It's like Gray Delisle Griffin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Now she's just Gray Griffin, but yeah. See, you had me doubting myself here.
Oh no.
Gray Griffin is 8 million voices, but I suppose most famous is Daphne. But this is just a teeny bit of the culture war joke of like Danny is stuck in the middle between the two of them. I also, now just hearing it back, Jack's delivery of like, you're right, Jazz is. Stan Smith would say it the exact same way, in the exact same style for an episode.
Yeah, they are very similar characters now that you mention it.
But I also just love the comedy of your teenage son is walked in unconscious by his two friends, and they're like, no problems here. They're just taking him upstairs. He's really tuckered out.
There's a suspicion should be Danny is on drugs.
Yes, my drug-addicted son. Yeah, that would be the normal parent assumption there. But yeah, this is another very, just like we have a central pilot moment of the Sam and Danny saying they're not dating, even though their sexual tension is like throughout the entire series. But also that Sam and Tucker have to be opposites. They have to be opposing, and that Danny is stuck in the middle. And this is literally when he gets stuck in the middle. And, you know, these are very easy. The meat people they don't really do jokes about them. I guess it's a joke that they want women to dress up in wiener costumes. Like, that's how much they love meat. But
it'd be easy, it'd be cheap. They could be like rednecks and like tank tops and, you know, busted hats, like grilling all the time or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a choice to not make them written as middle America, the meat lovers, while meanwhile the vegetarians are extreme dirty hippies who are crazy and have signs that say like tofu tastes sort of good.
Yeah, they've apparently been bussed in from outside of the school because they all just look like they're in their 30s.
And then also it's a very 2004 thing of just battling demonstrators. You know, it's sort of the Iraq war protest, but not, because it's just about meat, whether you should eat it or not. But like me and Bob, we were talking about this beforehand, like kids comedy in America back then were things about like meat. It's what's for dinner, or I like meat, or whatever. Just the statement of not just epic bacon. Epic bacon is the most rarefied version of it, but just the eating of meat jokes were just like, the joke is he ate meat. Yes, Danny is stuck in the middle in this little clip here.
You guys put together 2 protests in one night?
Meat eaters, Danny. Always ready to fight. And our high-protein diets give us the energy we need to do it quickly.
Ultra-recyclo-vegetarians are always ready to protest. And because we don't have to waste time cooking our food, we can move even faster.
Don't you guys think this is a little extreme?
No choice, buddy. You're either with me
or you're against him. So whose side are you on?
I mean, that also feels very Marmel to me, that he's just like, come on, guys, aren't you both? Aren't you two extremes going too far?
You should be a raging centrist like me. Although I'm glad they didn't make Sam eat meat. I thought I was going in that direction.
Oh, yeah. That would be selling out her character far too much if she's like, actually, I learned that I like meat. Meat's good sometimes, or whatever. They at least let her stay true to her beliefs.
See, Bob, you're always prepared to podcast because you don't have to cook any of your food.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which, that's crazy. You don't just eat raw carrots if you're a vegetarian.
It was like I became a vegetarian like a year after this aired, and all the adults in my life, I was an adult, but all the like boomers in my life were like, so you just eat salads, right? It's like, no, you know how many things don't have meat in them? I don't need to tell listeners, of course, but it's like, yeah, pizza. Doesn't pizza have pepperoni? No, you have it without pepperoni. Then it's vegetarian. Yes, exactly.
What? But yes, Danny fortunately does not have to choose a side, as his culture war is very quickly cut short by the evil lunch lady returning once more. And because there's a giant meat protest, there's tons more meat that she can then turn into a Godzilla-sized monster. And again, the rough draft animators on a TV budget, we're told, do a giant meat tornado out of individual cuts of meat and does it pretty good, I'd say.
It's some of the best animation in this episode, I think.
I guess it helps. They hug him, but it's really just to cover up his secret identity transformation, I suppose. But, you know, it's so crazy there. I figured nobody would have noticed anyway.
Yeah, for a second I was wondering, they were like, wait, what do you want us to do? Because it's not really obvious what he's asking them.
Come on, guys, cover for me. Like, all right, a three-way hug right now. Then we get a quick cut to Jazz as she is helping this Spike kid, which I know it's supposed to be a joke about like, who cares about this dumb punk kid? But to me, it's just like, oh, this is sweet. She is helping a troubled youngster figure out how to talk to her parents.
He was having a breakthrough.
Yeah.
She says.
But Jazz can't take it no more from her dad here.
Spike, you have to open up to your parents. Be true to yourself and them. Tell them how you feel. I mean, it's not like they're gonna attack you or anything.
I've got her, and the Fenton grappler is working like a charm.
I don't understand. If Jazz is a ghost, why hasn't she phased through the net?
Because I am not a ghost!
You've ambushed me, suffocated me with smoke, and worse, I was pulled away from Spike before he had his breakthrough!
What do you have to say for yourselves?
Eat hot Fenton thermos, ghost gal! Darn thing still doesn't work.
I really like her delivery of like, it's not like they're going to attack you or anything. Ah! Hearing it there, he'd already said that he sounds like the superhero from Dexter, but
Major Glory.
Yeah, Major Glory. But the mom, she's just doing her Dexter's mom voice.
Okay, or and she's dressed like Agent Honeydew from Dial M for Monkey.
Yes. This exchange is, I thought it's pretty funny. Like, what do you have to say for yourself? Eat hot Fenton thermos, ghost gal. Like, he thinks his daughter is just an evil ghost because she acts with some level of independence.
I kept expecting them to sell out Jazz, like, oh, she's only talking to this hunky, mysterious boy because she wants to get with him. But I'm pleased they didn't do that.
She's the only good person in this world.
She truly is altruistic about it. And as the fight goes on, like Danny gets punched through a plane and he grabs some water while flying through it. Not enough of a joke to be a good joke.
Yeah, I was thinking about like the censorship of this show and like what was allowed and what wasn't. So like he's allowed to kick the monster in the back of the head, but it also can't show the punch connecting with him when the monster punches him, correct?
Yeah.
It's another one of those sound effect interruptions that like actually block the connecting hit.
Maybe, when he does that slow-mo spin kick, they're like, oh, well, those things are just goo. They're not like a person. So you can kick through goo very slowly.
Maybe punches are more imitatable,
So yeah, no kid can do a roundhouse kick.
Exactly. I feel like on the Batman cartoon, there were more kicks than punches. And when there was a punch, it was like Batman is punching the camera and there's like a white flash usually.
Yeah. Always a white impact flash. That was, I learned a lot about that from OKKO did a whole episode about how like, oh, you never actually see a punch land. You just see like white stuff appear, a white flash on the screen when a hit would land. Jazz, meanwhile, is giving her parents the riot act, and she briefly talks her parents out to their senses, her insane parents, convince them that ghosts aren't real. This is something I noticed in so many horror films from this era too, about how like the person who in the real world, a therapist who would say things that are actually real, of like, no, there aren't real ghosts, there aren't this or whatever. In horror films, when it's revealed that ghosts are real, then the therapist is full of shit. Then usually the therapist like gets murdered. Like, see, this therapist is a liar. There are real ghosts. Therapy's a crock. Or like in, say, the Terminator movies, how evil the therapist is and how he's just like an over medicating idiot. Though I love that actor. He's great.
Earl Bowen.
Yeah, his appearance in Terminator 3, my favorite part of Terminator 3, when he appears in that.
I just rewatched Terminator 1, and I love how that character leaves the police station right before the Terminator walks in so he can just be in the next movie. He's like, well, my work here is done, and all the cops get murdered.
That's so great. Yeah. So that way then later, even though he knew about all the cops that got murdered at that place, seemingly, when he's treating Sarah Connor later, he's just saying like, yeah, she's insane. This
sounds like she needs more drugs.
Yep, drugs. Drug her up, man. Get that nightstick. Anyway, some fun animation in the fight scene here, not just the slow-mo kick, but also I think there's some really good animation on when almost like Ren and Stimpy reminds me of when the woman goes like, the lunch lady says, my balanced diet's of doom.
Yeah, there was like very precise lip sync on that. That's not exist outside of the show. Like somebody worked very hard on that one little cut.
Yeah. I wonder if Hartman himself was like, that line delivery is so good. I got to draw the full lip sync for it. The fight is going bad for him because even though he slow-mo kicks all the guys in half, they just reform. He gets grabbed once more and thrown away, and his powers are all going over the place. He's lacking control of it. As he's flung away, his father briefly comes to his senses.
And this thermos can't trap ghosts because ghosts don't exist.
The Fenton thermos! But how am I gonna get it to work? Change back! Change back! Thanks for the thermos!
Ha! Ghost Kid! I was right! You were wrong! Ghosts exist! I never doubted it for a second!
Not until the end of the episode did I realize, like, he didn't notice that was his kid.
Yes, yeah. He, for some reason, does not recognize his son with white hair, whose name is Danny Phantom instead of Danny Fenton. I love his very childish thing of like, you were wrong, ghosts exist. But that also feels very Hartman to have a big stupid jerk dad taunt his daughter for being right. And telling his touchy-feely daughter she's stupid and wrong.
All the women in the show are wrong.
And they need to learn it from a strong male character. The thermos also only works when it's charged up with ghost power, as we learn, which will be used quite a lot. And that's when he finally sucks up that ghost, and the ghost animation of it being pulled in, like, also really good. Like her being pulled out of the goop and like twists in a circle being pulled in. It's good stuff. Then we get a happy ending as the ghost tracker is turned on once more. I like hearing just the voiceover of the ghost tracker talking to his parents, and this happy ending for all.
Just like Dexter's computer.
God damn,
sexy
you're
lady
right.
voice,
Yeah.
Kath Soucie. There we go.
You're right.
Ghost directly ahead. You would have to be some sort of moron to not notice the ghost directly ahead.
Oh, sorry, Dad. You just missed him.
We got a runner!
Great. Back to square one.
So you're not gonna tell him?
Nah. I think I might have finally figured out what these powers are for. They make me...
In a world of trouble. Manson, pick up that T-bone.
With my hands?
Foley, pick up that turf witch.
With my hands?
Fenton! A little help! Whatever you say, Dash. Whatever you say.
What?
He should wink to the camera. I wish he'd do that. It's basically a wink to the camera kind of ending anyway. But I also like the very comic booky saying like, you just missed him. Superman was just here. You just missed him, Lois Lane. Like, it's a cute little way of wrapping it all up. But the final prank, also, it's like taken from classic Spider-Man or Superman comics too, where like the bully is mean to him and then he uses his superpowers to like goof on him one more time.
Cover him in rancid meat.
Yes, yeah. give him multiple diseases, I would think. Yeah.
What did the teachers think happened?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, that a bunch of meat exploded, I guess. You're right.
People saw this, right?
Everybody was running from the giant meat monster. You're
Yeah.
right. This should change everyone's vision of the world. They're like, oh, I guess giant meat monsters exist. That is not dealt with out loud.
No.
I think they deal with it a little better if people say like, oh, look at that monster, and hey, it's the superhero Danny Phantom who saved the day. But here they leave it unsaid what exactly happened or what the world thinks of it.
Later on, they do start to acknowledge that ghosts exist, but at this point, no.
I also, with the Vlad character, I think they have to deal more with the realities of the world because he's like a rich guy who used his ghost powers to get rich and also is trying to steal Maddie away from Jack. Like it's one of those type dudes too. It's what the father on Fairly Odd Parents thinks Dinkelberg is up to. But it actually is this time. Or also, I think he thinks Crocker's trying to steal his wife too. There's a lot of stealing wife fears that also appear in Hartman stories.
Weird. Okay.
A cute little laugh of an ending of both the Tucker and Sam have to deal with gross stuff as punishment for their extremism going too far, and then we get the ending theme, which is just the opening theme but instrumental, but it's fine. And I like the little neon color, ghosty colors over black for the credits. Good little credits, but not that Paramount Plus wants you to see them. I tell you.
No, it's like next episode. I want to see who made this.
Some comment down more than others. I think for me, Disney Plus is the worst for trying to see credits. Like this is close to it.
Was all the show 4x3? Or were the later
I think
ones 16 by 9?
No,
Okay.
I watched the series finale, and I believe it was 4 by 3
Interesting,
as
okay.
well. So it would have, I guess, ending in 2006, that's about at the end of the Square era of Nickelodeon.
End of standard definition.
I think, yeah, because Simpsons went widescreen in like 08, I think it was, or
Maybe even like 09, yeah.
Yeah. It was little after the movie, but not that long. Yeah, but a good little start to this this actiony show, which I think the drama and everything that grows into it, and him getting like multiple love interests and multiple villains, and the more drama and continuity added over time in Danny Phantom, I liked it more. But from popping back into it, I think I agree with the fans that the third season is the weakest of the three, but it's a good little action show for a Republican action show. It's a good show.
Yeah, I mean, I was too old for it then, obviously too old for it now. I think Butch Hartman works better in comedy. I don't know what he works better in now in his current state, but I was surprised by the show. I'm not going to watch like a lot more of it, but I was like, oh, if I was born in 1992 and not 1982, I would definitely be a Danny Phantom viewer for sure.
Kind of because I hadn't rewatched this in well over a decade. I was actually pretty surprised how much I enjoyed it as much as I complained about the animation when he was fighting things.
Yeah, I think it holds up pretty well, and I'm glad it's just all on something now instead. I guess before it was like on Netflix or whatever, and now you just have to Paramount to watch it, or other things. I guess I also, if I had one other complaint I found out from looking up Danny Phantom was, I wish they had any single extra on their DVDs. I didn't even touch the DVDs, but seeing is like, yeah, you just slammed them on. You slammed episodes onto discs. You didn't even make new cover art for it. That's usually it with kids stuff, but at the very least, like on the regular show or Adventure Time DVDs, even Steven Universe DVDs, they try to get some extras on there. It feels like they didn't even try with the Danny Phantom ones.
It looks like they were available through the print on demand program, where
there you go.
It was just like, if you want these, we will burn them for you at Amazon, but we're not going to actually like make a bunch of them to sell.
We'll burn a disc for you with a JPEG screen, like title menu screen that that has an arrow that moves, and that's all you're getting.
Yeah, History Channel did that too, and it's like, I really enjoy Wild West Tech, but I'm not fucking paying you people $30 just to make me one episode on a disc.
For a DVD-R I could make myself, no way. But yeah, thank you, Professor Gaskin, for picking a Danny Phantom.
Well, I figured you guys needed something enjoyable after the last one. So.
It was much more enjoyable.
We did that Mortal Kombat cartoon that was even worse than Capital Critters. So.
Definitely it was officially the worst thing we've done, right?
I think, yeah. And as for Capital Critters, I do think it's second worst. I think I liked Laverne and Shirley in the Army just a little bit more than Capital Critters.
Yeah, me too.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes. But yes, Gascan, we appreciate your patronage and you being on the show and this pick as well. Do you want to plug anything? Maybe something you don't even make? We often have like people plug things they just like.
I didn't make anything, but I did want to say, because I'd never actually introduced myself. I mean, maybe that's something I should have done at the beginning, but if I could just give a quick rundown of myself. No professional career, but I had a real rags to riches story a couple years ago. I was small business failing. Mother had a heart attack, then a stroke in the same year, getting kicked out of our house, ending up in a literal vermin-infested flop house that same year. Roaches and rats all over the place, living with random homeless people. And then, a year after taking a crappy midnight shift job at a local frozen food plant, got a better job, managed to leave that flop house with another person who was down on their luck but a good guy. Now living in a much nicer house, mom doing much better. Brought the cat with me after she started eating all the rats at the old place.
Wow.
And now, I just had enough money to actually take my first vacation in about 13 years. Saw my man in Texas, went to an Arkansas wilderness retreat, which was nice, though our tire blew about an hour there into our 12-hour drive. And then it blew again on the hour, about an hour away on our way back. So,
and you can also have a healthy Patreon budget, which every American should have. Yeah. Spend at least $100 a month on Patreon. It is the only help for small creators like us.
Yeah, see, exactly.
But that's great.
Yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, that's my crazy life story, at least for the last 3 years.
Man, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad everything's going better for you and for your mom. That's great news, man. Well,
yeah, most people you have on tend to already have kind of media stuff going on, or I guess guess, kind of creative stuff, but I don't. I guess you could say maybe I'm the most working class person you've had on, but or at least the First News had the shittiest time of it. But
well, thanks.
Yeah.
We appreciate that very much, Professor Gasquet, and we look forward to your next pick on the show. Maybe it'll be Spider-Man. I won't blame you if it is.
If it's in 2022, Nina will still like you. I think you won't anger her.
But thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. It's been a real pleasure here.
So thanks again to Professor Gascan for supporting our show. If you want to be cool just like Professor Gascan, head on over to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there at the $5 level. You get all these episodes 1 week at a time and ad-free, and then access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes our limited miniseries. Over 100 bonus episodes will be available to you when you sign up immediately. And there's also a new miniseries right around the bend coming at you. It's called Blabbing About Batman, the Animated Series. It's going to be us covering our 10 favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series through the end of 2021. You can only hear it if you're a $5 and up patron at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and there's a $10 level as well. When you sign up for that, you get all the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one extremely long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you enjoy this What a Cartoon podcast, but wish it was about an animated feature film and twice as long, you need to sign up at that premium level to hear it. You get to hear in the free feed, if you're listening to it there, you get to hear a lengthy preview of it, but the full thing is only for premium subscribers at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. This month, to go along with our upcoming Batman miniseries, we're covering Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, one of the best Batman movies there ever was. And before that, we did the DreamWorks 2D classic Road to El Dorado. Before that, a full summer of Disney Renaissance, Lion King, Hercules, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. We have 3 whole years worth of What a Cartoon movies you can listen to, over 160 hours of podcasts, in addition to all the $5 things you just heard Bob mention. Please check it all out when you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons to support us today.
So as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast, by the way, is Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. Find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. You'll see lots of fun takes from me there. Plus, if you're following me and Bob on Twitter, please follow the official Twitter account of this podcast network at Talk Simpsons Pod. Whether new episodes of Talking Simpsons or What a Cartoon go live on Patreon or the free feeds, you stay in the loop if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter. Same with when we have new announcements for upcoming miniseries or movies. Stay in the loop once more. That is at Talk Simpsons Pod.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next time for the Big City Greens episode, Barracuda, and we'll see you then.
I command you to go away!